All right. I think I'm live here. There was a problem with the other stream. Okay, there we go. We got some people showing up here now. There was a problem with the other stream. It wasn't going to launch. It required some streaming software. I don't know why that setup got there, but the level 2 Q&A is here now. So hopefully people are showing up here. I did leave a message in the other stream to click over here. So hopefully people are showing up here. See, we got 7 on, and there were quite a few on the other stream. So hopefully they found this one. So this session is for, and sorry about the lighting, but I've got a combination of the sun coming down over here and my light above me, because I'll run out of light by the time this is done. So it's got terrible lighting for now. So this session is for level 2 candidates, those who are thinking of entering level 2, those who are currently in level 2 now, or even level 1 candidates who may be heading to level 2 at some time in the next 6, 9, 12 months. If you're looking for any of the product that I have, it is my name, Mark Meldrum, just www.markmeldrum.com. Nice and easy. You'll find everything you need there for all 3 levels and the applied series. So I will answer any question you have about level 2, whether it be the current year, whether it be about different study strategies, when you should take it, any question you have, it's all open. And I will answer them in order as they appear here. So let's see what we have. Failed November session. How should I proceed for August 2023? I do get these questions a lot. I failed. How do I proceed? The one thing that distinguishes CFA from anything else you've ever done, and you've gone through undergrad, is that it's big. It's all or none. So there's nothing along the way to build your mark like you would have in a university setting. And it's self-study. Those are probably the 2 biggest drawbacks to the CFA, which contributes to the highest failure rate. So if you failed, it's probably because you underestimated the time required, or you didn't keep to a particular schedule. So the best way to progress is, you've done this in undergrad. You've had lots of opportunities at learning and writing exams and doing assignments. You have to have a schedule. You have to keep on track. You have to have some sort of plan that where you have time that's carved out, because there is nothing along the way to keep you honest. If you do nothing this week, nobody knows. It's not as if you have to show up to a seminar and participate in a discussion and it's going to be obvious you didn't do the readings. There is no assignment due. There's no group work due. There's nothing. There's only you in charge of it. So you have to have, I think, that discipline in there. And if you do, you know how to learn. I don't think that's the difficult part, is the learning part. The difficult part is sticking with a schedule. Let's deal with the second part, that it's big, that it's all one thing. In your undergrad, you have all of these deliverables along the way, and then you have a final exam that may or may not be comprehensive. In other words, it may cover everything from the semester, or it may just be everything from the midterm to the final. And you have 5 courses, let's say. You'll have 5 final exams. Each exam breaks down into maybe 8, 9 chapters of a particular textbook. This is all at one time. So you have to think about, well, how much do you study for final exams? How many hours do you put in preparing for that? And it may not be, again, as I say, comprehensive. So you have to pretend there's a midterm every so often, and everything you've studied, you have to study as if it were a midterm. So if you have, let's say you figure, well, there'll be 2 midterms and a final. I'll pretend I've got a midterm coming up. I've done 4 sections. Let's pretend I have a midterm on 4 sections. How would you study for a midterm that was on 4 sections? And then how would you study for another midterm that was on maybe 3 sections, and then you have your final exam? So if you do those things along the way, you sort of mimic what you do in an undergrad class, is that you're preparing in little bits at a time. When you prepare for that midterm and you study for it, you're reinforcing some of that knowledge you have. So even if the exam is comprehensive, when you're reviewing the first part that you studied for the midterm, a lot of that comes quickly because you've already put in the time to bring that into longer term memory. Do whatever you do for this that made you successful in your undergrad. Think of the courses in which you had A's. How did you get those A's? You put in the time. There is a direct correlation to your success in academics with the time that you put in. That if you were going to do a regression analysis about what are the good techniques to follow, you could have 5, 6 different variables: making my notes, making neat notes, being in study groups. There is one variable that will explain most of the variation, and that's the time put in, putting in the time. There is no substitute for putting in the time. So that was a long, detailed answer. Let's see. I am level 3 candidate. Just want to say, ask if there's an update on order of study for level 3. No, there isn't. For level 3, it's not the same as level 1. With level 1, I strongly recommend you start with the tools, especially Quant, because Quant forms the basis of a lot of things you're going to see at level 1, especially portfolio management and fixed income derivatives. Once you get to level 3, I don't know that there's any one topic at level 3 that sets you up for other topics. I think that at level 3, you could take 2 approaches. Start with the most difficult sections to give it the most time, or start with the easier section and knock them out quickly. The fixed income section is, just by the number of questions under videos, comments under videos, is by far the most challenging section based on the questions that are asked, based on the volume, with derivatives and economics coming in second. Once you get to equity and private wealth management, a lot of that is memorization stuff. It's just a lot of know what's, not a lot of know hows. But fixed income, derivatives, economics, it's a lot of know how on that one. So no, I don't think I'd change the order of topics, and I don't think if I had to pick one, I don't know that I would find that one is, if you know this, the other ones become easy. I would start with the more challenging one, which is fixed income, because the longer your brain can work on something, even subconsciously, the better the probability of understanding it. That if you're trying to study something complex, front end load it so that it has time to work in your mind. Let's see. I've registered for L2 in August, and up until now, I've been able to complete about 20% of the syllabus. It is taking a lot of time to cover each topic compared to level 1. Any tips? Well, level 2 is more quantitatively driven. It's a valuation level, so there's a lot more detail. Any tips? Well, it really is about putting in the time, right? I would say that you'd probably want to carve out more time because August will be here before you know it. It doesn't seem that far away, but we're already in April. So you've got, this is month 4, August is month 8. You've got 4 months. You're done 20%. I don't know how long it took you to do that 20%, but you're going to have to carve out more time. Try doing this, and I don't know if you do this. When I was in high school, you do most of your studying at night, right? Because you get up in the morning, you head to high school, you come home, and you do your studying at night. You become trained to doing your work, your homework, and your studying at night. In university, you can schedule your classes whenever you want. So you think, well, I don't have to wake up in the morning. I always hated waking up in the morning. I mean, who loves it, right? And when you're 20-something, you can sleep till noon like that. It's a gift. You can just sleep till noon. I started shifting it to the morning because somebody said, one professor said, do it in the morning and watch what happens. And it was incredible when you shift your studying to the morning, because when you wake up, your brain, your neurons are firing at the fastest of the day in the morning. It is your most productive study time. So if you get to the nighttime and you say, look, I'm putting in 3 hours a night and I'm still not where I want to be, try shifting that 3 hours to the morning. You'll find that you could probably get done in an hour and a half or 2 hours what takes you 3 hours at night. It's a more efficient use of your time because your brain is firing the fastest first thing in the morning. Shift, even if you put in 45 minutes in the morning, you will see that when you read something in the morning that you're connecting the dots a lot quicker than when you read it at night. There is a neurological argument for that, about something that builds up, that why sleep is important, because when you're sleeping, there's this fluid from your spinal cord that washes through your brain to clear out something, and it's that which allows some speed to increase. I don't know the neurobiology or the neuroscience of that, but there is some science for that. Let's see. Passed 1 and 2 in the first attempt. Just here to thank. Oh, well, you're welcome. Good. My question is about retaining knowledge. I'm scoring 80-90% as far as prep, but 60 to 70 when I have not seen a topic for a week. Any strategy for the last 4 or 5 days? Yeah, well, when you first do something, your recall is extremely high because you have it in short-term memory. But unless you find a way to bring it into long-term memory, short-term memory has a very fast decay rate. So you could read, a module and do the questions in the end of chapter questions, review your notes, and you could know it very well that day. But then if you just leave it for a week, you will forget some of it. But to get you back to where you were, you don't need the same amount of time. You need about 5 minutes with your notes. That's about it. And you can always bring your as it decays, that constant reviewing brings it up to the level that you used to know. So you don't have to redo the whole thing, but over your study period, you should have regular review periods. So maybe there's a Sunday every 2 weeks where you say nothing new. This bi-weekly Sunday is going to be for consolidation only, and it is just reviewing. And whatever you've done, you review beginning to end every Sunday. And each module, some of them are short, might only take you 4 or 5 minutes to review the key points. So you look at the learning objective and you say, okay, well, can I explain it to somebody else? And usually each learning objective can be explained within 4 to 5 minutes. And if you take one Sunday every 2 weeks to do that, then yeah, you'll do just fine. And this is what undergrad does, right? In an undergrad course, usually 3 weeks in, 2-3 weeks in is your first assignment, whether it be an assignment that was based on questions given, or whether it be a case study or something that you have to do. You'll have a midterm after that. You'll have some kind of group presentation, or maybe another longer case study. So your grade is broken down into 4 or 5 deliverables. Each one, you're reinforcing something that you've learned each time. That's absent with CFAI and the 3 levels. It's just one exam, pass or fail. So you have to build in your own deliverables. Every 2 weeks, do a review. I'm thinking of skipping November to enjoy my last summer before I start working full time. So I plan on doing L2 in May. What do you think? I don't think anything of it. You cannot get the 3 letters unless you have 3 years of work experience. So if you're not on the path of 3 years of work experience, there's really no point in rushing through the exams. The only reason you would think about doing the exam now is it is before you start working. Do you want to layer level 2 on top of getting acclimated to a new job? You want to do as well as you can on that job. It might take you more hours per day to get up to speed where everyone is. Are you going to have time to layer on level 2? So you could say, I'm going to enjoy my summer and at the cost of, overburdening myself in my first year of employment. You could look at it that way. I don't know that it's a trade-off. Saying, well, I can't enjoy my summer if I'm studying for an exam. I don't know that that's a trade-off. If you schedule your time well, let's say 24 hours in a day, you sleep 8 hours. There's 4 hours for, call it, administration of your life, because you got to eat, you got to, use a bathroom, you got to shower. Let's just say you got 4 hours of administration in your life. You still have 12 hours in a day. If you plan to have fun 8 hours in a day, you still have 4 hours of doing something. And part of that 4 hours of administration, we'll call it life happens as well. There's still time. So I don't know that that's a trade-off. I don't know that learning is getting in the way of having fun. Make it fun. If it is a job in this field that you want, markets never close. Markets don't take the summer off. Immerse yourself in the game. So I get what you're saying, but I'm not seeing that having fun and learning are trade-offs. Do you think doing an open book 25 question quiz on your site across all topics is effective? Yeah, as long as, here's the thing. If you are doing 10 questions and you walk away from those 10 questions and you say, okay, well, I knew that stuff. Well, good, you knew that stuff, but that's not what question banks are most useful for. Question banks really should be what is called formative assessments. That means they're there to help you learn. So after doing 10, you should say, well, I know 2 or 3 things now I didn't know before I started. That's what makes them useful. If it was there just as an ego boost, then it would be easy. We would just write really, really easy questions so that you got 9 out of 10, 10 out of 10 all the time and felt really good about yourself. But I don't know what that would do to your success. And question bank is not meant to make you feel bad about yourself either. And it's not meant to be done in a certain amount of time. There are certain types of questions in a question bank that would never appear on an exam because they're just too long. They take too long to solve, or they're too complex, or they require a higher level of thinking. But in getting you to those levels and pushing you into that, then a question about that's easier is by definition easier, right? Nothing wrong with open book. Nothing wrong with open book. If you want to try something more challenging, on the left menu, there is a menu item called unanswered questions. Answer those open book. Those are open-ended questions where somebody says, why are we, finding the present value of this number? Maybe it's a derivatives course. And okay, once we solve for the payoff, why then are we discounting the payoff? Why are we finding the present value? Well, then there's an open book question. Answer that. It's open-ended. It's a lot better than just a multiple choice question with 3 prompts where you can look at one and say, that's it right there, because I can eliminate the other 2. We specifically have pulled back on answering the questions to leave candidates the ability to answer them, because they are crowdsourced generated questions that are open-ended. You will never learn more about something than when you teach someone else. You will never learn more. For anyone out there who in university has ever done any tutoring, you'll know exactly what I mean. That when you start doing tutoring, you start realizing the limitations of what you know, because students ask you questions from everywhere, and you think, I never thought of that part before. Now you got to fill that gap, and you got to fill this. You never learn more than when you teach somebody else. 38 years old. I like the financial market and willing to pursue a career in the financial markets. Is it too late for CFA? It's never too late. It's never, ever, ever too late. I was 36 when I did a PhD. It's never too late. It's never too late. And there are, emerging things in the market that I still have to learn, you know. Oh, excuse me, my back is a little sore today. So I'm still learning. I still buy books. I still read. I still make notes. So no, it is not too late. It's never too late. My L2 exam is in 5 weeks. I want to sign up for February L3, but won't have my results for 2 months. Can I purchase MML3 content before I can officially sign up with CFA? I get what you're saying. We don't recommend doing that simply because you don't know what the outcome of your exam is going to be. What we recommend doing is buying one section. And yes, you can go ahead and buy one section. Buy one section. And I would suggest the fixed income section. It would take you probably 5-6 weeks to get through it because it is a tough section. So I would suggest doing that, is buying one section, one only. And then when you do pass level 2, when you upgrade to the full section, whatever price you paid for level 2 comes right off the full price for level 3. So you end up paying the same price anyways. Do you anticipate new content being on the exam in any significance? As you know, corporate issuers has quite a bit of new content. Well, yeah, we're not given any guidance by CFAI as to what is going to be asked. The only guidance we get is if it's a learning objective, it's fair game. And that they stay true to the learning objective. So if there is a describe LOS, but in the reading for that LOS, there's a description of a formula. The formula is given as part of the describe process, that sometimes it's easier to describe what's going on when you can see it mathematically. Even though there's a formula there, the LOS is described. They're not going to ask a quant-driven question on that LOS. They'll stay true to the LOS. That's about the best guidance we're given. We are not told that, okay, so these new sections, we're not going to ask any questions, or we're going to load up on questions on the new stuff. We're not given any guidance. So anything I would say on that is just a guess. And, well, you don't want me doing that. Let's see. Okay, there it is. I want to appear for February level 2 exams. That just disappeared. Let me see if I can go back up. Wow, there's a lot of questions here. I just lost it. Every now and then it just shoots right down. Oh, there it is. I want to appear for February level 2 exam, but I was thinking of applying for the Access Scholarship available in September. So can I buy your level 2 package now to start my prep? I'm going to go ahead and say no, because there is no February level 2 exam. There's a May level 2 exam, and that's not going to be available on our site till August. We can't actually list it till it's available from CFAI for subscription. So there is no February. So I think you meant 2024, May 2024. But in August of 2023, take a section. I mean, if you're going to get an Access Scholarship, that's fine, but go ahead and take a section or two so that you can get started. You can do that. I'm aiming for the 90th percentile in L2 next November. What should I focus my time on after finishing the material? Next November, that's a lot of time. How are you going to maintain momentum that's basically a year and a half. Yeah, that's 12 and 6, a year and a half. I think you may be starting too soon. I always say get yourself more time than less time, but a year and a half I think is just way too much time. You're way too ahead of the game, that by the time you get a year in, one of two things: you'll forgotten most of what you've learned, or you'll be just sick of it because you've been with it for too long. I wouldn't do that. What I would do is get involved in the market somehow, and the best way to get involved is start a paper portfolio. See how good you are. See what you can do. And the nice thing about a paper portfolio is you can try all sorts of things, including failure. Even trying to take positions so that you can test yourself and your emotional fortitude. Are you willing to take the loss when it's there, or is pride going to get in your way and you want to win on every position? But get involved in the markets. Start reading the daily feed, Wall Street Journal, Barron's, Financial Times, Bloomberg. There's a lot of good stuff out there. There's a lot of interesting stuff on YouTube. But to start preparing for an exam for November of 2024, you're a little far out for that one, I think. Let's see. Thoughts on doing your QBank versus CFAI. If we have time, should we be doing both or prioritize CFAI? At level 2, I think we have some good stuff at level 2. I wrote probably 60 to 70% of level 2. I've written about 95% of level 3, but not much of level 1. So I can't speak with about level 1 versus CFAI, but for level 2, I don't know that it's one or the other. Try them both. See which one you're happier with. I don't know that there's one or the other on that one. Yeah. A couple of questions before I go to bed. Any specific advice for L2? I followed the same study pattern with more effort, yet I struggle to remember most of the learning objectives. So as I said earlier, just constant review is imagine, every 2 weeks you have some kind of deliverable that's due and you have to do a 7-8 hour study session in front of it. And if you do that, I think you'll find that you can get a lot of that into long-term memory. Can anyone who's seeing this comment and who has passed level 1 or level 1 and level 2 both, can you please comment how the CFA has helped in getting in a finance role? Okay. I failed L2. How can I start internalizing and understanding instead of simply memorizing like I'm used to since childhood? By application. That is typically the best way. And level 2 is a valuation level, so it's a lot more quantitative driven. So you do have to get your hands dirty. You can't memorize your way through formulas and expect that when you're given numbers, especially messy numbers, messy meaning that maybe you have to get 2 numbers to create the one variable in the formula, or you're given 10 different variables, but you only need 3 of them and you got to pick out which of the 3 you need. And maybe there are 2 or 3 steps to getting to a solution. Once you start getting into anything numbers driven, there is only one way. You got to work problems. You got to get your hands dirty. That's the only way to internalize anything arithmetic. Would you say that level 2 is more practical to the real world than level 1? Level 1 is a declarative knowledge. It's a lot of know what. So you end up walking away from level 1 with a lot of language of finance. You know what a bond is. You roughly have an idea of how to calculate the present value of a bond. You understand the sensitivity. You understand duration. You understand time value of money. So you get the whole concept of derivatives. You have a very good basic understanding of portfolio construction and exactly what we're doing when we're building portfolios, the whole idea of diversification and the lowering of portfolio risk. It gives you a good vocabulary for the industry. Level 2 is a valuation level. And level 3 is a portfolio management level. They are practical in a sense. Level 1 is not very applied, again, because it is a declarative knowledge level. Level 2, you start applying things. So if you see that you're moving closer towards more practical tools, especially in the equity valuation section, that is how equity valuation is done. Whether it be a cash flow discount model, whether it be a relative valuation analysis, that is how it's done. And that is exactly how you'll do it when you're an analyst. So if you find it's moving more practical, yes. When can England have the MHATs? It's shipping. It is shipping. Usually when companies sell product like hats or shirts or whatever, they usually have a company in the country or in the continent that will actually fulfill. They'll have what's called a fulfillment center. So if I wanted to sell hats in Europe, what I would do is I would find a fulfillment center in Europe, and I would find a hat producer in Europe. I would have them made in Europe and have them sent to the fulfillment center. And then every time an order came in, the fulfillment center would pack and ship. And then that's why sometimes when you order things online, you get that package and handling charge. Well, package and handling is what the fulfillment center charges to get it to you. So you got to buy the hats, you got to get the inventory to a fulfillment center, then you have to pack and ship. But you got to balance that correctly because the fulfillment center doesn't want inventory, which means if you are not turning over your inventory, it's not free to keep your inventory at a fulfillment center. They're going to start charging you for shelf space, which turns into a whole business model. And you're not going to do it for one product. You need an array of products, and you need a large enough audience that you can move packaging. Some fulfillment centers will say we need a minimum 5,000 units per month, like 5,000 transactions per month, or a minimum 1,200 transactions per month, something like that, to sell 100 hats once a year for charity. I doubt if I would find a fulfillment center that would do that. So that's the problem, is the logistics of the whole thing. If you can solve the logistics problem, you can sell them anywhere in the world. But most of the logistics solutions require volume. So, once you get your hands messy with the real world, you start to see that, it is a world of size. You have to come with size if you want things done, right? Where are we? Finished the L2 curriculum, but overwhelmed on how to review all the content because I forgot everything. Well, that is a normal course of learning, as you forget. But you will find that reviewing does not take as much time as learning. It takes nowhere near the same amount of time, maybe 10% of the time. So if you spent 20 hours learning a particular section, if you reviewed it for 2 hours, you'd be back up to speed. And then, of course, it's regular review sessions all the time. Second question is specifically about Quant. I've read through the topics, watched your videos, went through questions, but I struggle. Should I put more time or focus on other topics? Yeah, just move on to other topics. You don't have to pass every single topic. Some topics, it is okay to say, look, I have a cognitive block when it comes to this topic. My strategy is 50%, because half your questions will probably be quantitatively driven, half will be conceptually driven. So if you get the concepts that's driving it, if you can look at output and say, well, I think this shows signs of multicollinearity, for example, if you can conceptually do that kind of thing without actually having to calculate anything, half your questions will be conceptually driven anyways. So it's okay to have a couple of sections where your target is 50% because you can do better in other sections. It's okay. Just don't have too many sections where your target is 50%. It took me 600 hours to complete my prep for level 1. How much time should I take for level 2 prep? Probably the same. When you say it took 600 hours, there is quantity and there is quality. Usually after about an hour and 15 minutes, the productivity of your study time starts decreasing. So 600 hours, were they like 5-hour sessions each? If they were, that 600 you probably could have achieved that in 400 hours if you had 1.5-hour study sessions beginning in the morning and at night. You probably could have reduced your study time, because after a certain amount of time, your productivity decreases. So the first hour is worth an hour. The second hour might only be worth half an hour. The third hour might only be worth 20 minutes. It's just that it's taking you longer to get the same output. If you think about how much stuff you're putting in your head, how much of it you're understanding and retaining. So I can't really answer that directly because you put in 600, what was your score? If you put in 600 and you got the highest score, well, then you really went overboard at level 1. You probably don't need to do that for level 2 unless you want to repeat your score. Let's see. I'm wondering if I'm not good at math, how to handle the questions for quant. Sometimes I don't think I understand thoroughly regarding quant. Well, the quant section, even though we think it's math, is really arithmetic. There's not a lot of math involved. It's more arithmetic. And if you're not good at the numbers, that's okay. There is the conceptual side of it. If you can conceptually understand what's going on, that's fine. Most of those formulas that you see, they're just sentences. You can read them as English words if you want. You can write each of those sentences as English words. It's just writing in notation is more universal because everyone understands it, but it's just another way to write a sentence that is somewhat more understandable. But if you're not good, if you've always had a problem with the numbers, then yeah, level 2 can be challenging because there's just a lot of that. And if you're just at quant right now and you haven't gone to derivatives, if you haven't gone to economics, if you haven't gone to fixed income, maybe you just have seen quant so far. I would say, the arithmetic is not hard. I wouldn't call it math because it's not math. It's arithmetic. That's all it is. It's a lot of adding, subtracting, multiplying, dividing. That's all it is, really. So, I don't know how much more I can say on that. But how to handle the questions, you've just, well, you can try. We do have tutoring at reduced rates for candidates. We have charter holders that are willing to do tutoring. For some of the more difficult sections like quant, we do have office hours as you get closer to the exam. We do have office hours that you can attend. Those are open question sessions. You can ask any question you want. Can you explain this stock market and crypto rally amid a constantly deteriorating macro environment? What would you see as a good investment at this stage? Why don't I pass on that? Because we're really trying to stick with level 2. If at the end of the session there's time left, I'll get into some of those questions. When are you making a level 3 video? Well, there's no level 3 exam in May. The next level 3 exam is August, and level 3 results are out on Thursday. Level 3 results are out this Thursday. So usually you let people, digest their results. Next Sunday would be too soon, which would be the 16th. 16th, I'm going to do a live session for the question that we just had about the stock market, crypto rally. That's next Sunday. I'll do a live session for that. Probably the Sunday after would be a good time to do a level 3. There's so many topics and some are longer. Does it make sense to prioritize more important, longer sections? Sometimes I find I go into the weeds on smaller topics. So level 2, I have sort of 2 ways to think about how you can approach it. There is the easy stuff first or the hard stuff first. By the easy stuff, you start with equity. It's a long section. It's a big section, but it's super duper easy. It's not challenging at all. Corporate finance, again, there's another one that's not challenging. You can knock a couple of those easy ones out of the way very quickly. Or you could start with the more challenging sections. And at level 2, there's a couple of them, right? Quant, derivatives. Derivatives is considered quite challenging, especially if you're learning from the book. From what CFAI provides, because it's written so badly. It's probably the worst treatment of derivatives I've ever seen. It's just written very badly. So you can start with the harder sections: fixed income, quant, derivatives. Portfolio management has a couple of challenging readings. Economics has a couple challenging readings. Depends on how you want to do things. I have always, when I've studied, front end loaded the hard stuff, because if I can't get the hard stuff, what's the point? I have to. I'm gonna have to get the hard stuff at some point. What's the point? If I can't deal with the hard problems, well, the easy problems aren't going to help me. So let's I see sometimes people tackle problems by taking care of all the small issues first. It's like, why are you doing that? Why are you wasting time with the small stuff? You're going to have to deal with this issue. And if you don't get this issue out of the way, what's the point of cleaning up the small stuff? You got to get past the big one first. Just go right for the big stuff. Pension accounting, yeah, that can be tedious. I don't know about prioritizing when you say more important longer sections. I don't know about longer sections will have more marks associated with them, but the weightings are on CFAI's site. You can prioritize the sections that are weighted more heavily. But at some point, you're going to have to make some decision for some of these readings of whether or not you're going to let them go, because if you're not getting something, and you think, well, it would take me 10 hours to get it, can I get better outcomes with 10 hours spent somewhere else? My score in derivatives and portfolio management level 1 was very average. How should I change my strategy in setting these topics for level 2? Well, when you say change your strategy, I don't know what your strategy was in level 1. You say your scores were average, but you don't tell me what your strategy was. So how can I change my strategy for level 2? Derivatives is a hands-on section. You got to work problems. You got to get your hands messy, your hands dirty, and start thinking about derivatives as nothing more than time value of money. Draw a timeline. Just draw a timeline and start putting all the money at different points on the timeline and pretend you don't know the formulas. Well, what do you do when you have time value of money, when you have money at different points in the timeline and you're trying to compare them? You move them all to the same point in time. So once you have them on the timeline, you can move them anywhere as long as you're comparing money at the same point in time. That's all a formula is doing. If you look at a formula for any derivative, for valuing any derivative, all it's doing is moving money to the same point on the timeline, subtracting the difference and taking the present value, or taking a current present value, taking a future value and bringing it to compare. That's all it's doing. It's a formula for the time value of money. For portfolio management, well, level 2 has some funky readings in there that might be tough to get your head around. The economics one can be challenging, and I think it's economics, just trying to, say what a hero it is by saying, look, we can even explain this stuff, and I think that reading could have been done in 5 pages instead of the length that it is. So being that I don't know what your strategy was to get average scores, I don't know what it is that you would have to change. But I will go back to what I said earlier. There is one variable that explains outcomes in education more than anything, and it's putting in the time. Let me know how the CFAI helps in breaking in a finance role. I am working in a non-finance role and want to use the CFA to pivot into finance. Is this realistic and practical? Yeah, it is realistic and practical. The CFA is not intended to get you a job. And I think that is sort of the understanding, or at least the misunderstanding, is if I get this, I'll get a job. And if I don't get a job, well, then it's not worth anything. It wasn't worth it. The CFA on your resume is meant to separate you from those who don't have it. So if there's a job posting and there's 500 resumes and 300 of them don't have anything about CFA on it, you'll probably make the first cut. That doesn't mean you're going to get in the room, but you'll at least make the first cut. It is meant to improve the probability of you getting in that room, but you've still got to get in that room. Once you're in that room, it's not going to help you very much. You've got to sell yourself in that room. You've got to walk in and you've got to tell them why you're worth hiring. They know what they have to offer you. What do you have to offer them? And if you can't talk about the markets, if you can't talk about the latest Fed decision, if you can't talk about the equity rally that we've seen in Q1 and give some kind of explanation for it, or whether you're bullish on it or whether you're fading that rally, if you don't know what's going on in the game, then I, as the interviewer, have to ask, what are you here for? You're here for a paycheck. You're here for what we have to offer you, but you've shown us that you have nothing to offer us. The CFA will get you past some of the filtering. That's what it's meant to do. Is you'll probably make the first cut, which is this stack of resumes goes to this stack, and then from this stack, somebody else looks at it and says, well, let's give interviews to these people. What is it on your resume that I look at that I say, I need to talk to this person? Let's put them in a room. If it's just, I have level 1, it's like, yeah, but so do these 30 other people. Now, the 70 I eliminated don't have it, but still 30 people have it. So what else do you have there that makes me want to get you in a room and talk to you? So it is one thing. It is not the thing, right? So think about it that way. Let's see, where are we? Exams for November 23. However, I have a UK trip June 1st to July 10th. Goal is to get through all the content before June, come back, review videos, and hammer QBank. If your exam isn't till November, oh, you're gone June 1st to July 10th on a UK trip. Is there something on that trip which precludes your ability to do anything? I mean, you're talking about 40 days. That's a biblical number there, 40 days. You expecting a flood or something? 40 days. In those 40 days, are you saying that there is no opportunity to do anything? Now, if you are, or if you just don't want it hanging over you, yeah, you can try to get it all done before June. But when you come back in July 10th, 40 days off, you're going to forget most of it, in which case I would say, unless in those 40 days you have a strategy of saying, okay, I'm going to use any downtime to review. You're going to have downtime. I don't know how anyone can be engaged for 40 days straight, no matter where they are. I was in Russia for a month one time, and, with everything to see, I still had, nights where it was like, well, I got nothing to do. You sit in your room and you watch, German TV, because if you've ever seen German TV, you don't have to pay for porn sites in a hotel room if you got German TV. What they can play on TV is just shocking. But you're going to have downtime. So the idea that you can't get anything done in 40 days. What do you think about environmental commodity trading? Do you think it's a kind of new ESG thematic investing? Do you see future in this sector? Why don't we save that one to the end as well? Because that, when you say environmental commodity trading, that would require more questions. But there is a trade in a move towards the greening of the grid. Copper is the big one. I completed level 3 in 3 weeks, thanks to you. Oh, well, I don't recommend that for anyone else, though. I completed... Oh, I thought you said level 3. Because looking forward to level 2. You're going backwards. I completed level 1 in 3 weeks. Looking forward to level 2. Yeah, I wouldn't recommend that for level 2. There it is. Cerebrospinal fluid. There it is. There it is. Do you recommend your quiz bank for L3? Yes, I do. It has severe limitation, being only MC type questions. The question bank is multiple choice. You're right. It is formative assessment. They are challenging questions meant to help you learn. But as far as AM style questions, we have a lot. We have, I believe, 5 AM exams along with live AM exam sessions, where I go through the structure of every question. This has this keyword and this keyword. This is what an answer looks like. I give you a lot of information on how to answer those questions. And then we have 3 more exams on top of that are longer exams. I think they're 180-point exams as opposed to 135-point exams that are nothing but AM preparing questions. So we have, I think, in all, almost 80 exam level, no, maybe even more than that, maybe 90 AM exam style questions with live sessions, 2 per exam. And each of these sessions are 2 to 3 hours long. There is no shortage of support for the AM exam. The question bank doesn't have them, no. But getting closer to the exam, yeah, we got a lot. So I don't see it as a downside there. We've got quite a lot. Will you explain why you explain so well? Tips for professors? Oh, okay, that's good. Do you plan to do AMA for level 3? If yes, when? Yeah, consider 2 weeks from today would be probably the right time. I struggle with answering questions for the growth theory section in the economic growth reading. Any tips for me to score well? Yeah, that is a complicated reading. I think it's a little too technical for what we want to get done. I mean, it is really building on on a Cobb-Douglas growth model. I think it's important to understand it because I think it's probably one of the best models for understanding economic growth, even though it's a simplification of reality. All models are simplifications of reality. We don't judge a model by its resemblance to reality. We judge it by its usefulness, and it's an extremely useful model. Try to look at the simplicity in what it's saying. There's a lot of complexity there, but in the end, it's really saying a few things about capital. If you have labor and you throw capital at it, labor becomes more productive up to a point. As you're throwing capital at labor, that's called capital deepening. You're deepening the amount of capital, and it will help make the economy more productive up to a point, which means more capital, more of the same type of capital isn't going to help. You need better capital. And if you have better capital, you can take a growth rate of an economy and you can shift it upwards, because now the same amount of capital with the same amount of labor equals more productivity. That is the promise of AI. AI is not an investment in capital deepening. It is investment in technological progress, which makes all capital and labor more productive. That's the simplicity of what it's saying. But you're not going to win a Nobel Prize by saying that. You need formulas, you need lines, you need beautiful, elegant math that everything has some equilibrium point and it works out. Otherwise, you're not going to win anything. So that's what you're learning, the more academic version of it. But the simplicity of it is really you're looking at labor, you're looking at capital, and you're looking at technological progress. And if we're looking for output in an economy, it is a function of capital and labor scaled up by technological progress. An economy that fails to progress technologically will stagnate. An economy that has a lot of labor but not a lot of capital can only be so productive. And you can get massive growth rates if you take a big population and start throwing capital at it. There's China for the last 20 years, right? But they are getting close to a point where capital deepening isn't going to help very much. So we should expect their growth rates to slow down. That's the power of that reading, is that you can look at a few big variables and you can say a lot about the economy and about growth rates of different economies just from a few variables. So it's a very useful model. Try to find the simplicity in it by telling a story about something. Ignore the complexity. Some of the tighter connections are in that complexity, but you don't really need all of the complexity to make the big broad story. Let's see. Can you please comment on the curriculum changes from 2022? Seems like they simply split multiple regression real estate. Yeah, there weren't that many changes. Real estate really just got divided. Honestly, it is one reading in the 3 really just got divided. And same with regression. It introduced a few new things in regression, but from 2022 to 2023, there weren't that much. Level 1 has had big focus level 3 had big focus for a couple of years, where every year it seemed like 30% of level 3 was changing. So having it slow down was quite thankful. But level 2 hasn't really changed that much, and I think for good reason. Is that, there isn't a lot of change going on in statistics. There isn't a lot of change going on in equity valuation, in derivative valuation, in fixed income valuation. There really just isn't a lot, and it's a valuation level. And a lot of these things have been around for years in their current form. So there isn't a lot of change in that respect. The biggest things happening in quant is probably machine learning and big data. Those are probably the biggest things, the biggest changes going on there. So level 2, I think, tends to be more stable than level 1 or level 3. However, I'm a betting person, and I don't know this for sure, but I am a betting person that given how CFAI deals with their levels, being that level 2 has been fairly constant, low volatility for so long, it would not surprise me to see some major changes down the pike. But I just, I don't know that for sure, but it would seem to me that would be a place that would be open for change because it has been so stable for so long. Drop linear regression. Didn't drop linear. Linear went down to level 1. Return concepts and industry analysis from equity section. That went down to level 1. Actually, no, return concepts and industry analysis. Industry analysis was at level 2. It got dropped. It got reintroduced again as the last reading in the FRA section, the financial statement analysis section, as financial modeling, because it was more focused towards that. So it got reintroduced at that level. That's where you go through that long example. They have downloadable spreadsheets for it. I can't remember what it was, but it got reintroduced. I failed level 2 3 years ago and have been demotivated to take it since due to fear of failure. Any words of wisdom? Well, I don't fear failure. I fear the fear of failure. The fear of failure will stop you from doing all sorts of things. It's not the fear of failure itself. It's the fear of failure. Don't be afraid to fail. Nothing wrong there. There's always learning in failure. If you're afraid of failure, never, ever, ever invest a single dollar on your own, because you will be wrong. No one in the history of this game has a 100% record. No one in the history of this game. Not one person. You are going to be wrong. You are going to fail, and you're going to lose money on some trades. You are. So if you have that fear, stay away. Stay away. I can tell you that right now. The fear can be, I think fear can be paralyzing, or it can be motivating, depending on which way you look at it. So you have this idea that, well, what if I do it and I don't make it? Switch the narrative. This is called framing. And sometimes we can come up with different answers if we simply just frame the question differently. Imagine not doing it, and what the outcome would be of not doing it, and versus doing it and failing. And you can weigh the two, saying, well, if I don't do it, I'll never have this, I'll never know this, I'll never get you. Well, it's not that you'll never know this. You can learn everything in CFAI in multiple ways. But does it hold you back in some way by not doing it? Are you in a place of employment where it is just something that is expected, that if you want to reach higher levels, like asset manager, portfolio manager, that well, you sort of have to have it, otherwise certain roads are closed to you. Think about the alternative. Okay, I'm not going to write it, I'm not going to do it, and what are the outcomes there? And are those things, do you fear those things more than failing an exam? Right? So if we're afraid of going forward with something, all we have to do is imagine going backwards. And if that fear is greater, well, then there you go. That'll push you forward. How smart do you have to be to crack all 3 levels? Not very. you have to be persistent. You have to have a stick-to-itiveness. It's not a level of your intelligence. It's not really a measure of your intelligence. It's a measure of your willingness to put in the time. I've when I was a professor, I would start every semester with the same lecture. Lecture, my sort of 10-minute opening of every class is, you are free to pursue whatever grade you want. I'm not going to sit here and dictate to you that your life will be closed unless you get A's. You're free to do whatever you want to do. No judgment from me. Some people are comfortable with a C. That's what they choose. That's fine. That's the choice that you've made. Some people are comfortable just getting by. However, you're going to want a job. Otherwise, why are you here? Your transcripts are going to be required for any direct hire because that's all they have to see. Any company that recruits on campus typically requires a copy of your transcripts because that's all they have to go on. When they see a transcript with B minuses and C pluses, they don't see somebody who lacks intellectual ability. They see somebody who is unwilling to put in the time. They move it to the next pile. We don't need somebody like that. They're unwilling to put in the time. That's fine. Let them go do something else. That's what you're telling employers, is that I'm unwilling to put in the time. To answer your question, it's not about your intellectual ability. It's about your fortitude. That's what it tells the employer, is that you were willing to do this because it's not required. You were willing to put in the time. It'll get you past the first cut. After that, it's all up to you. But it is about putting in the time. For level 2, do you think more time should be spent on formula revision or theory? Well, level 2 is a valuation level. There has been a shift towards more conceptual questions and less quantitative driven questions because most data services will give you the output. You're not going to calculate, you're not going to value a swap at any point in time. At any point in time, your system will give you the valuation. You'll know what your mark to market is every day. I know on my system, when I have options on futures, at any moment in time, I see exactly what the valuation is. I don't have to get my calculator out and calculate. I can see it in my unrealized P&L on the marks every day. I see it. So it's a matter of knowing what's going on in there. So when somebody says, given where interest rates are now, being long futures contract is an expensive carry. I know exactly what that means because the curve is very upward sloping because you have a very high interest rate. When interest rates are very low, the cost to carry is minimal. Well, that means something. If I'm going to be short, I've got positive carry because I understand the formula. I don't ever once calculate what it is. I know exactly just by looking at my screen what it is, but if I don't know how to calculate it, I don't know what any of those numbers mean. So I'd say that if I had to make a guess, I'd say lean 60% conceptual, 40% quantitative on that, but I'd probably lean more conceptual than quantitative. For the multinational reading, what are the ways to keep the current versus temporal method straight in your head? You know what? I forget them too. If somebody asks me a question about it, I think, well, let me just go back and refer to the reading, and I look at it. Okay, here it is right here, and then it comes back to my mind. Unless you work with that stuff all the time, it doesn't stay in your head. It's one of those things that I forget as well. So when I get a question on it, it's like, wow, let me look it up first. It's nothing that just rolls off the top of my head. Ask me anything about options, derivatives, fixed income, rates, par rates, spot forward, about quant, and that just comes right out. But if you say in the residual income valuation model, I said, well, hang on a second. Let me just refresh my memory here. You asked me something about temporal, the temporal method. I would have to look it up as well. So you're not alone on that. So it would just be, like I said, it would just be regular review. Level 2, August 23 candidate, working full-time, living alone, no support on household work. Haven't started preparing August exam. Please guide on time management and study plan. I'm a finance degree holder. Level 2, August 23 candidate, working full-time, living alone, no support on household work. You know, there is no secret. Again, it's about putting in the time. That really is the one big variable, is you have to find a way to put in the time. And I would say if you're busy studying, you can't possibly be messing up your apartment that much. So that would require less cleaning. You think about it that way. You know, I'm in the same situation here. I've always lived alone. I've never had any help in doing anything here. But you know, I do know that I do sacrifice a lot of time in doing what I do. But I love what I do, so I don't really see it as a sacrifice. But you know, when you look back on the last year and you think, well, did you go anywhere? Did you see anything? Well, not really, no. I mean, I don't really leave the house that often. You just have to, I guess, ask what's important to you, you know. And if other things are more important, then I would say don't give up on what's important to you. If you had to make a list of what is important to you, not priorities, but what's important to you in your life. And if this doesn't make the top 4 to the top 5, the top 6, let's say, maybe do a little bit of soul searching and reevaluate. But if this is a career that you want, if you can't imagine spending your life doing anything else, like if you think, well, I could be a front desk clerk at a hotel, right? I mean, think about the career that you want. And then think about, well, how do I increase the probability of getting there without really sacrificing a lot of my well-being, a lot of my meaning in life? If this doesn't make the list, something is telling you something, right? I've never seen anything I do as a sacrifice. I see other things as a sacrifice from this. So if you see it that way, then it becomes easier. But you just got to find the time. You just got to find the time. That's it. Due to health issues, it's difficult for me to work full-time and study for CFA at the same time. Do you think it would be worth it to stop working until after I pass all 3 levels? No. I'm going to go ahead and say no. At no point would I say sacrifice practical experience for book knowledge. At no point would I say that. If you find it difficult to do all at the same time, then you just do it over a longer period of time. Take 2 years to prepare for level 1. Take 2 years to prepare for level 2. You don't have to do it every 6 months. You don't have to do it on their schedule. You can do it on your own schedule. And keep this in mind. There are tens of thousands of people in this industry who are successful who do not have a charter. Right? And there are, of the 190,000 charter holders out there, I think 190 now, there are literally thousands of them who are not successful. And I've said this before, the charter is neither a sufficient nor necessary condition for success. So you don't necessarily need it. Warren Buffett doesn't have a charter, but if he held a class on valuation, would you show up? Right? You don't need one to be successful. The lack of it does not preclude success, and the having of it does not guarantee success. So relax. Do it over time. It's not a race. You don't have to have it in the next 6 months, the next 2 years. Just take your time and get it done. Make it fit in your life. Have a definition of what your life is like that gives you meaning, right? Don't look for happiness in life. That is a ridiculous thing. I don't know whoever gave that piece of advice. Do what makes you happy. That's just bullshit. Do what gives you meaning, because you're not going to be happy every minute of the day. You're just not. And if you think, well, I'm not happy now, you might think, well, I'm going to follow that advice of do what makes me happy. This doesn't make me happy, I quit. Do what gives you meaning. And when you have meaning, as Nietzsche said, those with a why can survive anyhow. Take your time. Do it over multiple years. Let's see. Plan to take, I just lost all the comments again. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to start at the bottom and work my way back with the most recent questions, because I just lost my place again. Every now and then the comment just scrolls right to the bottom. If your approach to level 2 was the same as level 1 and your approach to level 1 was plug and chug, you're doing it wrong. Yeah, I sort of agree with that. How many days a week should somebody try to study? I don't think that I want to reframe these statements. Try to study. Let's reframe it. How many days a week can you go without studying? 1, 2, right? Think about it like the gym. How many days a week should you go to the gym? A better question is, how many days a week should you be away from the gym? Right? Think about it the other way. How many days a week do you think you should be away from studying? I wouldn't try to target a certain quantity. If your head is not in the right place for it, then it's 2 hours of wasted time. You have to want to do it. You have to be drawn to it. It has to pull you in. You have to be doing something else and feel guilty about doing something else because you should be doing this, or feel a longing for this because this is where you want to be. And I'll tell you, nothing is more addicting than success. Nothing is more addicting than success. So break down your studying into small little chunks, where you say, all I'm going to do is this learning objective. And you look and you say, well, this learning objective covers 4 pages. That's it. And you'll find that after 15 minutes, okay, I get this, check. Hey, that was easy. Let's do another one. And if you have these small little goals all the time, the big goals will fall into place on their own. The big goals will fall into place on their own. So I don't want you to focusing so much on just the quantity of what you're doing. I want you to focus on the quality of the time you spend with it, that this is something you want to do, and you've structured it so that you have a lot of these small victories that happen rapidly. Okay, I got to scroll back up here. Where was I? I'm just going to start at random anywhere here. Level 2 working. Oh, already did that. Are there level 1 topics you think are important to go back and review for level 2? Yeah. So go to markmeldrum.com, click on CFA, and then click level 2. You'll get the 3 little boxes up that give you the pricing. If you scroll down, there's some orange writing below that says, see how the level 1 and level 3 readings reference level 2. Click on that. You'll get a grid that says level 2 reading, level 1 reference, and the readings at level 1 that support level 2. So we've already done that. I can't focus on studies due to work pressure. Please, some suggestions. I want to prioritize study than work, but I couldn't. Then, as I said, you could just stretch it out. There's no race for the designation. Just stretch it out. I'll move my mouse over to this side and use this hand, my left hand, for scrolling, and I'm right-handed, so this is going to be fun. Was supposed to write last year, August, but deferred due to invalid passport. Completed all EOCQs on paper, but now doing it on ecosystem. Should I be hard on myself if I don't complete all before exam? No, don't. No, I can't afford for paid classes. Any tips for self-study for L2 August? I am just starting prep. Any tips for self-study? Well, you got to keep at it, right? You got to have a schedule, and you have to be honest with yourself in terms of putting in the time. You simply have to do it. And you might not be able to afford any paid classes, but there might be one or two sections where you say, I'm just not getting this. If you go to our site, you can get a whole section. I think it's at level 2, $36, $39 US. That might help you with derivatives. So if there are two sections where you say, I'm just not getting it, maybe just picking up a section might help you. You might not need the full level. I don't know where you can get the level of explanation that we provide, the quantity that we provide in terms of teaching quality for $39 for a whole section. If you go to our site, you can register for free. You can get free access, and you can assess my teaching style at level 1, and you can decide whether or not it's a style that aligns with the way you like things done. But the approach I take is I'm not treating this as exam prep at all. I am treating this like the same way I would teach it in a university classroom, with the same level of explanation, the same level of detail. Even if that level of explanation is not testable, I don't know how you can have the conceptual understanding of it without that level of explanation. So this idea of just make it a 45-minute video for this reading. Well, what if it takes 3 hours to really explain it? I can't do it in 45. So yeah, some of the videos are 3 hours long, but it takes what it takes to explain it, right? Everyone talks about a different strategy to approach L2 compared to L1. If you hear noise, it's just because I'm moving my microphone around here. There we go. Everyone talks about different strategy approach L2 compared to L1. Basically, what I did in L1 is to match the LM video of each reading followed by practice question videos. So for level 1, it's a lot of declarative knowledge. So you can get through it a lot by reading and going, okay, I get this, I get that, making a few notes, and off you go. Level 2 is valuation, which requires a lot more direct contact with the content. So meaning a lot more worked problems than you would at level 1. When I'm done, I want your reviews for practice questions. I want to review. If I score below 70, after that, PQ and CFA and mocks. This is what I did for level 1. It was very close to 90th percentile. I'm doing the same for level 2 now, and I'll register soon for November. Do you think it's a good strategy? Everyone has their own particular way of learning and doing things. If it works for you, it works for you. I'd say keep at it. I am repeating for level 1 this May, and there are some things to keep in mind about changes in general for I am reappearing for level 1 this May. Are there some things to keep in mind about changes in general for reappearance for level 1? Nope. No. As far as anyone in that test center knows, they don't know that this is anything any different. The exam that shows up on the screen doesn't know that that you're repeating. It's basically you're repeating the same thing. Nope. Revision tips for the last 40 days before L2. Well, it is revision. It's not learning new material. It is revision. So right away, you've already got the answer. The review period takes all of that stuff that you've learned and consolidates it and starts putting it together in structure and order in your long-term memory. So by not doing it, you're giving up a valuable part of the learning process, which is that reinforcement in your mind, the consolidation of all of it and the moving it into long-term memory. So yeah, you review. That's exactly what those days are before the exam, is not continually learning new stuff. And okay, I got to get through this section and that section. You should be well through everything at this point and on to the review period. How many days for review before L2 is recommended? At least 28. My plan is to give L2 in May 24. I guess your material won't be available until August 23. How best should I start preparing? I have a non-financial background. You can start reviewing some of the readings at level 1 that help support level 2. Yeah, the 2024 content cannot be released until CFAI allows it to be, which is August. So you won't be buying 2024 material to then. But if you're picking up in August to May, that's a long time. You're good there. Reinforce level 1 with some of level 2 and throw yourself in the game. Start trading a paper portfolio. Tune into Bloomberg in the morning. Start pretending you're in the market. Unless, of course, you already have a career in the market, then you're ahead of the game on that one. Busy now making my own notes of things I struggle to remember when tackling questions. Do you think this is effective? Yeah, it's effective and efficient given that it takes time to make the notes. Well, some things are effective but not efficient, right? Burning down your house to get rid of termites is very effective, just not very efficient. There is some people believe that by writing notes out by hand, you are reinforcing it in your mind because you're actively making those notes. I don't know that is true for me, because I've made notes of things in the past and I've completely forgotten them after. It's not as if I remember them better. Where I do remember better is where I don't make the notes and I'll read a paragraph and I think, oh, that's worth making notes. In university, it used to be you'd highlight in a textbook. You'd highlight, and some people went crazy with the highlighter and all they ended up with was a book with yellow pages. The idea behind highlighting something is that, oh, this is important, so when I review, I'll go back and read it, but they never do. So you make notes on the side, but unless you go back and review your notes, then what's the point? The note is supposed to be a consolidation of what the reading is, and then you review the consolidation. I have found that no matter how those things are consolidated, if I have the consolidation, I'm okay, that I don't necessarily need to make my own notes. What I do need is somebody smarter than me to make the notes, because if they're making the notes, then I can rely on the fact that they have already been through it. So there are sites now where you can actually, for university, you can buy somebody else's notes from class. Some people take good notes. Doesn't matter where you get your notes. It's the review part, the reviewing of the more consolidated information that matters. So I don't know about spending a lot of time making notes. If it helps you, then yeah, it helps you. But it only helps you if you review the notes later on. The mere writing down of something is not that important. I passed L1 years ago. How do I best structure L1 callbacks before learning L2? I say I just jump right into L2. I say that you can review opportunistically. You don't have to review level 1 before you jump into level 2. Just jump into level 2 and you might find that, hey, you know what? I don't need to review. It's all coming back to me as I'm going through this. Should I do some problems as well as videos? Is it possible to buy Meldrum notes for the L1 callbacks? You don't need the notes for the L1 callbacks. Really, there aren't that many. If you again click on the readings at level 1 that support level 2, out of the 60 readings at level 1, I think there are 10 to 12 that are critical. That if you wanted to review those, that was it. And if you've had our level 1 subscription, you should have your level 1 videos in the archive. So you just use the archive and you can refer back to those level 1 videos. Currently have a trading job at an asset management company. I feel like it is very operational and focused on execution. Well, that is what trading is, right? I would like to get into sell side. You mean buy side? You said sell side hedge fund trading. Hedge funds are buy side, into the buy side hedge fund, or do you mean either one, either the sell side or the buy side? Any advice? Trading is execution. It's just somebody else has decided that they want 20,000 shares of something, and it's your job to get those 20,000 shares. And you may have some target that you have to beat, whether it be an intraday target, whether it be a set price target. But that's your job. It is very operational in that sense that you haven't made the decision to buy it. You're just trying to get the order filled. Any advice to get into sell side or buy side? I don't know. Speak up, I guess, is somebody's making the decision for you to trade something. Speak up. Just say, hey, here's, I have a goal for my career and it looks like where you are. And look for a mentor in your organization. Now, a word of advice when you're looking for a mentor: do not go to the mentor if somebody agrees to help you. Don't show up every day tugging their shirt sleeve, asking them questions. A lot of it is on you. Okay. A lot of it is on you to position yourself for what you want. But every now and when you're hitting a wall and you just can't get somewhere, that's when you go see them and say, look, I've done all of this stuff and I'm just having trouble. People love to help. People want to help. What they don't want is to carry the whole load. Okay. It's like asking someone to help you move. And when they show up, you're not lifting anything. You're expecting everyone else. So you're not asking for them to help you move. You're asking for them to move you. Don't ask a mentor to move you. Ask them to help move you. But the first thing you got to do is speak up. Don't keep it to yourself. If you want to run a department, say it. Hey, I want to run this department. How do I get there? And you have to show yourself willing to do the work to get there. So if you look at people who have positions that also come with good financial rewards, they didn't get there just by showing up every day and then somebody saying, well, you've been here enough time, let's move you up, let's move you here. They spoke up. They said what they wanted. They had ideas of where they wanted to go. They had somebody within the organization that was mentoring them and helping them. And the one common thing you'll find among all of them is a level of sacrifice of what they did to get there. And that usually means time. Is you're going to put in more time than other people would. You're going to show that you are willing to put in the time to get it done. But I'd say the very first step is speaking up. And if it becomes very clear to you very quickly that that pathway is closed to you, where they say, not here. I mean, you're going to have to go somewhere else for it, but here you're going to be a trader and that's it. You're not part of our group. If it's clear that that pathway is going to be closed to you, better know that now. Now you can look for something else, right? But if a pathway isn't open to you, leave. If it is open to you, then speak up. Because no one is just going to assume that that's what you want to do unless you actually stand up and say it's what I want to do. Let's see. What's a strategy for FSA questions? Why? I don't understand that question. Why a strategy just for FSA questions? I don't know how to answer that one unless you tell me that there's something specific about FSA that requires a strategy. What do you think of for CFA AMA on Reddit last week? I did read some of it. Understand that they're going to give you very conservative answers to your questions. I saw some about the exam and this and that. They're not going to tip their hat about anything. Most of the questions that they're going to answer is information that they've probably already put out there and information that you could find on their website, but it's not a true ask me anything. It is go ahead. A good sum up for what was on Reddit was, you go ahead and ask me anything you want, and I'll go ahead and answer just what I want to answer. And that was that was probably a good sum up. How many calculations, computation questions can we expect to see on L2 exam? 25 to 30 out of 88. Yeah, I'd say that. Yeah, maybe 35. Well, you got ethics in there, right? Yeah, 25 to 30, I'd probably say is a good range. That was from Muhammad Ali. Great boxing career, by the way. I completed your reading videos once. I'm revising through your reading videos plus review videos and going through as many questions as possible in your question bank. Please suggest a strategy. May 23, level 2. You seem to be doing okay. At this point, it really is just a measurement of time, is putting in the time. There is no magic secret that I can unveil 6 weeks before that says, aha, do this. Any efficient way of learning has found its way into the videos. It's found its way into the content. So there's nothing new. It is really that one big variable. You're on the path. How important do you think are social skills in the investment finance field? Well, if there are humans, then you need social skills. Do you think it is more valuable to focus on improving my social skills if that's a weaker area for me than technical stuff? Well, it depends on what you're going to do. You have to operate around people unless your work speaks for itself and people say, well, you got to work with this person. Don't expect much on the personality side, but God, they're smart. If you stand out that well, you're allowed to be socially awkward. You're given some license to be, socially distanced. Go to any IT department, and it's nothing but socially distanced people in all respects. They don't go to parties and dance. I'll tell you that right now. But social skills, if you're going to work with any people, you're going to need social skills. So yeah, I think it is important because it's a competitive industry. So yeah, you have to be good at what you do, but you also have to get along with people. People have to want to let you succeed and help you succeed and not work against you. So yeah, I think you can elevate that, definitely. And it is a shame that universities and designations like this don't have more of that. Although I think at level 2, there is one of the practical skills modules is analyst skills. It is going to have some of those elements to it. I don't know how much, but it is going to have some of those elements. So it's nice to see that coming in. When should you start the ethics readings for May? Well, look, you've been through ethics at level 1. Anything at this point should be review. To me, and this is just me speaking, ethics to me seems like a memorization thing. Because there's sometimes, the standard is not intuitive. It's not as if I can read it and say, well, why are we concerned about this? And you got to really think it through to think about, well, why is this and why is that? And so to me, it would seem like a lot of memorization. And memorization is short-term memory. That has a fast decay rate. I would tend to do that as close to the exam as possible because it does have a fast decay rate. And I know I'm not going to internalize a lot of it because I simply don't work with it every day. I don't work with it at all, really. So it's not as if I have a history that I could look back on and experience working with the stuff. So I would do it as close to the exam as I could. Do you do the CFA L2 QA weekly? No, 4 times a year, because there are four exams a year, 4 results a year. And even though we didn't have level 2 results from February, there is an upcoming level 2 exam. How long a review period would you recommend? 28 days. What is the most interesting topic reading to you in level 2? It's a good one. What is the most interesting one? So the most interesting one would be a reading that I would not mind reading several times. Well, that's a good one. I don't know that there is one interesting reading that I would go back to that I'd say this is the most interesting reading. I'd say derivatives normally, but it's written so terribly that I can't say derivatives. I'd say the alternative investment reading, whenever you get into the commodities, I think is important. I think private real estate is interesting. I think private company analysis is interesting. If in the equity section, I think that's interesting. I think there was, in alternative investments, there was something on private equity in there. That's interesting. So those are fairly interesting. Would you prioritize finding a workplace that values and supports the CFA studies while preparing for L2? Well, yeah, I think that's a nice bonus. If you have the ability to choose, then yeah, you can then say to the organization, I'm going to choose this one over this one because it has that. If you have the ability to choose. Any advice on how to compartmentalize and protect study time and energy? Um, so there it would be a matter of let's say that I was working with Warren Buffett or some really great investor who didn't really see a lot of value in the charter, who thought that the real world was more important. But I was working with somebody like that. Then I don't think I could get a better education. The CFA would be low on my priority list because I'm working with a great investor. But if I'm working in a fund and I'm not working beside any really great investor, they're average, but I don't really get to see the process. I'm sort of in the corner. I'm not part of the decision making. I'm not, there are meetings all the time and I'm never in them. I don't actually get to see anything going on. At that point, it would be like, well, I need to improve myself to be more marketable because I'm not getting the education here in the real world that I need. If you're getting real world education where you are, maybe think about, well, you weigh the two. One is not as real world, but it does have a credentialing factor that signals to the marketplace that you have achieved a certain level of knowledge of something, a tested level of knowledge of something, where the other comes with results, and nothing says that you know what you're doing more than some results. So it's which one would you side with on that side? Um, what is the advice? Was it Pliny? Know thyself, Pliny the Elder. I think it was that know thyself, or was that was that above the school in the gymnasium, the school in Greece? Know thyself. I don't know where it was, but I think this is where that line can come in: is know thyself. What do you want? Right? What do you want? And can you get it from where you are? There's an expression, you can't get there from here. Hey, how do I get to Kapik, whatever city you want, Kansas or whatever? Well, you can't get there from here. What do you want? What's important to you? Maybe take some time and do some self-exploration and ask yourself, what do I really want? Where am I going to get meaning out of my life? And I get it. At 25, it's going to be hard to really answer that question. Because at 25, what do you want? Well, I want what they have on TV. I want that car and that house and those girls. I want that life. Well, that might be fun for a while, but that's not going to give you meaning. What would fill your life with meaning such that none of that stuff would matter? Ask yourself that if you take all of that material stuff out of the way, but you had this, what would that be? And can you get it where you are? If you can't, well, then you're going to have to figure out where you're going to get it from. And in a competitive world, you're going to have some kind of device of which you can then signal to someone else that you know something. We live in a world where we are constantly thinking about trust. And this is why we think decentralized systems make sense, because there's no one in control and trust is built into the system. Well, there is trust in the system today. It's called a credential. That if I have a degree from Wharton, the person hiring me can trust that I have a certain level of competence. That's already built in, because trust has two dimensions, right? Trust, when I say I trust you, it means I trust that you know what you're doing, and I trust that you have my best interests in mind. Well, the first one, I trust that you know what you're doing. Unless there's some kind of signal, how can I automatically get that trust unless I know you? but I don't know you, so I don't have that. So the more that you can signal, look, you can trust me on competence, then the only thing I got to worry about is whether you're a good person or not. Well, I'll figure that out over time. But if you're in a place that isn't going to give you the meaning you want in life or give you a pathway to that meaning, you're going to have to get it somewhere else. And to get it somewhere else, you're going to have that level of trust where the other person says, I trust that you can bring to me the things I need. That's what those letters behind your name do. Because you can learn everything in the pages of CFAI without ever writing the exam. The books are on Amazon. Every year they release the books on Amazon. You can buy level 1, 2, and 3 curriculum combined all together for less than $1,000 and learn it all. But you're sitting in front of me saying, well, I self-learned everything. Well, okay, but you don't have that signaling device that says that somebody has said that you've done that. To say that, well, I know everything a lawyer does. I went through all the books. Yeah, but you're not a lawyer, are you? So there is no independent body that I can then rely on for that level of trust. So think about it in those terms is can you get what you want where you are? And if you can't, you've got to go somewhere else. You're going to need some kind of market signaling device. That's what this is. Let's see. Do I really need the CFAI if I work in commercial credit mid-market, or should I consider CBV, the business valuation? Well, is that where you want to stay in that role? And if it is, then find something that is more relevant to what you want to do. Yes, CFA, if you're into equity analysis or fixed income analysis, any kind of financial security analysis, or an asset manager role, I think works very well. But for what you want to do, it may not be the specialist designation that you would need. CFA is a very generalist designation. So there might be something more relevant if that's where you want to stay. Sure. Currently doing L2 Quant. And sometimes I feel a little bit uncomfortable not knowing where all of the test statistics and conditions assumptions have been derived from. Yeah, go back to level 1 and review hypotheses testing. It's all right there. Review right at the tip of my tongue. The central limit theorem. Once you understand the central limit theorem, you'll understand hypotheses testing and why we can test something from one sample, and why we can make assumptions about the population. Once you understand that, then great, off you go. You can get all of that at level 1. There's testing of means and testing of variances. So some of the tests that you do in Quant at level 2 are testing means, like the test on coefficients. That's a test of means. The test for the regression as a whole is a test of variance, analysis of variance. Couldn't commit much prep time for ethics in level 1. Should I review ethics lecture videos before level 2? Yes. Is the material for ethics level 2 the same? Yep. Code and standards are the same at every level. How would you rate level 2 exams for credit analysis role? Well, the CFA level 2 exams, if you're looking at credit analysis, it doesn't really go into a lot on credit. There is one reading at level 1 which introduces credit, one reading at level 2 which doesn't really look at it. It kind of discusses two sort of models. One is a structural model, one is a balance sheet model for credit analysis, but that's about as far as it goes. I'm not even sure if the FRM would get more into detail on that. During the final review, does the data still show diminishing returns on practice exams after about 3 or 4? Yeah, for level 2, yeah, that after you've done about 3, going on to 4 and 5 do show diminishing returns. That your best gains come in the first three. After that, there really aren't that many more gains to be done from doing more and more mock exams. So yeah, I think that still holds. I passed the level 1 exam and now registered for level 2 November. Is that too short a time? That's 6 months. You know, it is too long or too short of a time, depending on the time that you want to put in. If you say, well, I'm going to do 40-hour weeks, well, then maybe 6 months is too long. If you say, well, I'm going to do 6-7 hours a week, well, then maybe that's just right. Maybe not even enough time. So 6 months is neither too long or too short. It is how much studying you plan to squeeze within that period of time. How did you establish your personal portfolio today? Did you immediately invest the same way with little funds, or did you begin by taking it seriously past a certain threshold? Well, that's a good question. In the beginning, I had some good ideas, just a few good ideas. And I was more entrepreneurial minded at the time. And I was thinking that these are good businesses to start. Why don't we start a business doing this or doing that? And, you need investors to get that done because you don't have all the capital yourself. And there was one idea I was looking at, and I just Googled it, and I found that there was a publicly traded company that was doing these things. And it was about, my idea was big super gyms, not just small gyms. I'm talking about 100,000, 150,000 square foot gyms that had everything in major centers. Lifetime Fitness was already doing that. And when I first saw it, I was like, I was a little disappointed. But then I was, sort of heartened a bit because I said, well, wait a minute here. Why don't I just buy them? Like I could just own part of them, and they worked out very well. So that was the start of it. But then from there, it just gained more and more energy, so that it was, a period of doing very well, followed by a period of not doing very well, followed by a period of doing well, followed by a period of not doing very well at all. We're all, and I think everybody goes through this in their career where they hit a dry spell where nothing works and you just have to walk away. And then you come back with clarity and vision. And then after that, everything just takes off from there if you get it. Some people never get past that. And that was it. It was, you had to have a plan of committing money to the market at certain intervals, and you build from there. And that was it. Yeah. Really struggled preparing for macroeconomics for level 1, especially real business cycles. Business cycles of money. Would you suggest books for macro before level 2? No, level 2 doesn't pick up from there. So you don't have to worry about that. I think there's one reading on regulation, which has nothing to do with level 1. There's another reading on currencies, which if you understand currency from level 1, then level 2 is just, an extension of that. And then there's a reading on growth models, which really doesn't rely on anything you've seen in level 1. Well, I shouldn't say anything. It doesn't really rely on level 1 that much, so don't worry about it. Would you please consider adding the seminar videos to level 1 archive, or have it as another add-on option? Yeah, we can think about that. New curriculum has Python in it for level 2. However, how do we get the skills for those relevant topics for the industry? Oh, I see. You've registered for level 2 for November 23. You will have them available. I believe CFAI is going to make them available for you anyways, because they're not testable. For 2024, you must do at least one of the practical modules, but you have them all available to you. So I think you will have them available to you. Are there any L1 topics that you suggest to review? I already answered that. I failed L1 February, took a year off to study. Other thing for job opportunity. I know that stats was a rough part for me. Any advice? I think, with things like stats, whenever you have difficult topics, it helps to Take your time and go slow. Make sure you have a very firm foundation of what you're learning. Learn one thing and one thing only. And when you have that, add the next thing, and that's it. You're not trying to learn the whole reading, just one or two things until you understand it, then add the next one. You'll find that once you build a solid enough foundation, all that other stuff starts building on top of it. It all makes a lot of sense. But when you're having difficulty in a particular topic, it just means that you're trying to build a house on a shaky foundation. It's just a sign that you have to go back and revisit the basics of it. Pay attention to the assumptions that are being made, because sometimes missing an assumption makes something else hard to understand. So how can you have this going on with these two things? And you read and you say, oh, we're assuming that. Okay, so now it makes sense. You're assuming this. Now that makes sense. Make sure you have those basics, a good solid foundation. Spend the time on that. You can use an analogy of building a house. If you ever see a house being built, it looks like nothing is going on until the foundation is all said and done. And the rest of the house seems to go up in a matter of a couple of weeks. But it seems like there's a lot of work on the lot, digging the hole, doing the footings, getting the walls, pouring the foundation, getting all that stuff done seems to take the longest part. And then the house just sort of seems to snap together after that. Learning is the same thing. There's this foundational knowledge that you have to have. And sometimes going back and reviewing that foundational knowledge makes the house easier to build on top of that. I finished school in 2013. GPA is low. Yeah, so what? Pass CPA exams, but not getting me to the job I want. What is your advice for me to shift to finance? Well, the CFA does not have a entrance requirement, so don't worry that your GPA is low. The nice thing about the CFA is there's only one CFA charter. There's only one. So it is an equalizer. So if you graduated from, let's say, a tier 2 or tier 3 school and your GPA wasn't that great, this is an opportunity to wash it clean with a designation that nobody can have anything different of. Everybody who has it has the same one. So this is kind of like, that second chance to sort of just, get even again where everyone else is. So if you are trying to move into finance, then you're on the right path. You failed stats. Go slow. Go slow. It isn't difficult. It isn't difficult. Some people find it difficult because it's non-deterministic. It's probabilistic. So that probabilistic math tends to be not as conceptually clear as deterministic math. So deterministic math is y equals x squared. Well, we can all understand that. Y equals x squared. There is no 95% confidence interval. There's no test of whether or not this number equals x squared. Y equals x squared. But when you have a probabilistic outcome and an outcome, you have a mean and you have an outcome, and you say, well, there's no difference between these two. Sometimes it's hard to wrap your head around, but I can see that they're different. Well, you can, but there is this distribution of possibilities. Does this lie within the distribution of possibilities? So that stats is, because it is probabilistic and not deterministic, it's sometimes hard for us to get our head around because we're looking for some kind of, I can see it's different. How can you say it's the same? And stats is one of those funny things that if you have a sample of 30 and they're different, if you have a sample of 100, they're the same. How can that be? Well, the greater your N, the more likely that you're going to find, what you're looking for. It's a different type of thinking. Not that it's challenging in the math at all. It's just a different type of thinking. Go slow. Just go slow and understand that you're moving away from determinism to probabilistic outcomes. And probabilistic outcomes doesn't mean that just because two things are different, they're not the same. See how odd that sounds? How to get into fixed income trading? Any tips or suggestions? Social network is, who you know. and who knows you and who likes you. And so you have to increase the size of your social network, and you have to find a compelling reason why someone in that industry says you're the type of person we want. I'm struggling with understanding portfolio management after watching the videos. Do you have any advice what I could do to get a good understanding for the basics? Level 2 is got some conceptual issues in there, and some topics that are more conceptual. The factor not analysis, but factor portfolios, factor investing is just another way of investing. But rather than investing in a particular stock, you're investing in a factor of which you can get from any number of stocks, right? You just want exposure to certain factors. Once you start recognizing that it is the risk exposure that I want, and I can get that from any number of stocks, it becomes a little clearer. The more complex reading in there, and I even say it at the end of the video that this reading is a colossal waste of time. It could have been done in 4 pages. I say it right at the end of the video. Now that we're at the end of the video, and I say I've never said this about any other reading, but this one was a colossal waste of time, because it really wasn't saying much. It wasn't saying much at all, but it took a lot of words to say nothing. It could have been done in 5 pages. If you're dealing with the one on the intertemporal rate of substitution, yeah, that's a bullshit reading. That could be done in 2 pages or 3 pages. You didn't need all of that to get that message through. That could have been done in much simpler English in a few pages. I wouldn't worry too much about that reading. But in the end, if you don't understand a particular section, it is okay to let some sections go. It's okay to say, look, I'm going to target 50% in this section, because the output to input reward isn't worth it. I mean, I got 10 hours to spend. I can spend it here and go from 60% understanding to 63% or 64, or I can go over there where I have 50% understanding and get it to 70. Well, where is the output going to be more valuable, right? And, there are some things that maybe you'll never get your head around. I mean, I had that in university as well. There just were some topics I just couldn't get my head around. Well, you say, okay, well, I'm going to target this, or I'm going to let this go, because I don't get this, and I don't have to know it all. And on this one, I'm going to let go. Have you made more money from the markets or more money from your jobs or business? I've made more money in the markets than I have from jobs. But business, well, most of you know that I sold my business last year. So I'm going to have to say business. I'm not going to tell you any numbers, but I'm going to have to say business. A good reason is the tax rate as well, right? I mean, if you build a business and you sell your business, it's a capital gain, and in Canada, only half of that is tax. So it's basically, half a tax rate on everything, because only half is taxed at your marginal rate, is the same as having everything taxed at half your marginal rate. On an after-tax basis, a capital gain will always win. But in the market, you have to make a distinction between, am I getting income? Am I getting dividends? Am I getting long-term or short-term capital gains? So April 16th, derivatives workshop, the same as the one that was done on April 5th. I wouldn't say it's the same. Whenever you have these kind of sessions, it's never the same, because you do not expect that you're going to get the exact same questions. And some of the questions that I did get, I found that the answer that I gave probably wasn't as clear as it could have been. So there's always reviewing on my part. I watch it again and I think, okay, I missed saying this, or I should have drawn this out. Examples come to mind after the fact that, I could have given this example and that would have made it clearer. When you're answering questions live, it's coming right off the top of your head. But when you go back and you review and you look at it, you go, I should have said this, or I should. You ever get in an argument with someone and you call them names, and then an hour later you think, I should have said this too. I should have called them that. You think of a lot better insults later on. Well, it's the same thing with this. Is that you look at it, and you suddenly better examples come to mind. You say, I could have used this example or I could have used that. So I find that when I do these sessions, the second one tends to be better than the first one, because the second one, I have a whole bunch of questions that I've already been asked, and it gives me time to think of examples in a moment. It's hard to come up with an example for something, but when you reflect on it, you think, oh, I had an example for that. I could have said this or that, or I could have drawn it this way. So the second one tends to just be clearer, a bit more clarity, with some better examples, because I've had time to think about it. So it's the same format. Whether it'll be the same content depends on whether or not I get the same questions. How can I improve my programming skills? When I did my computer science undergrad, there were a couple of languages that we went through. Unix, which was all C, C++, and Java. And the only way to improve programming skills was to write code. It was the only way, is just to continually write code. I'm going to write code to do this. And you just keep writing little snippets of code to get little things done. You push yourself. You say, well, can I get this done? Can I try to do this? Can I try to do that? That's the only thing you can do to improve your programming skills. Okay, we already did that. Already did that. I'm wondering about the difference about level 1 ethics CFA and level 2. The code and standards are the same at all 3 levels. Now, the ethics section may not be the same, because there are different case study readings. GIPS is a little bit of GIPS at level 1, a lot of GIPS at level 3, but I don't think anything at level 2. And at level 3, you have the asset manager code. So while the section on ethics is different at each level, the code and standards are the same at each level. Isn't the CFA going to teach us the fundamentals in coding through Python? Yeah, one of the practical skills module is Python coding. Yeah. I had a similar issue understanding how increasing interest rate didn't cause call options to fall in value. Okay, I don't know what that's taking off from, so we'll pass on that. With the new emphasis on badging to recognize progress and passing level, should we spend more time networking, emphasizing pass to move up in career, just focus on charter? Well, that's going to be an interesting one. That's a good question, actually. Because prior to where we are now, there was no partial charter. I don't even think they'd call this a partial charter now, but there was no partial charter, and you couldn't claim partial completion. You either were or you weren't. You were a candidate or you were a charter holder. Well, now with the badging and credentialing, the question is going to be, can their marketing campaign be effective enough such that the employer then recognizes it as partial completion without you having to say it yourself? Because if you have to say it yourself, then what's the point? I mean, your level 1 results say it. What's the point of giving you a badge if they're not going to put some kind of marketing and branding behind it and promote to employers that, look, we have this, so these things may show up on resumes. We do recognize these things along the way now. And if they do employers say, well, duh, I mean, like, so now you're putting a badge to something we already knew? Or is it going to mean something? I don't know. To me, last few years on LinkedIn, you'd see the little round circle level 1 passed that you could actually put on your social media sites. And now it's saying, I've seen one of them certified or endorsed or certified by CFAI. I'm struggling. If I were an employer, I'm struggling to see why the second one is superior to the first one. What is it signaling to me that's different? I don't know, but I haven't seen what kind of marketing campaign they're going to bring to this. But my first sort of reaction to this is, what's different here? Like, what is different than what you were doing before, other than it looks different? Is there something inherently different in it where it matters? And if it's just a different way of branding, well, do I really need that? So I don't know. I don't know what my thoughts on that are. I follow your market update vids. Please suggest an approach to better understand these outlooks. Yeah, so I did do one video which says understanding the market outlook, where I actually went through each of the numbers in each of the charts to explain, well, what are par rates? Why are we using par rates? What are break-even rates? What do they mean? How do we interpret them? So if you go through the videos on my channel, look for the one that says understanding the market outlook, and it will help you understand the numbers that you're seeing. How does your website handle deferrals? I don't know about the operational issues that much anymore. But if you have deferred, we allow you to defer as well. So how it's handled, the actual operational parts, click here, I'm unaware. But if you use support at markmeldrum.com, somebody will help you out there. I have great respect for you, but had bitter experience with your admin team. I'm a genuine level 3, but I am now blocked and deprived of your great content. Could you please help to allow my access? I don't get a lot. Well, I shouldn't say I don't get a lot. I don't get any of the emails for customer service at all. And nobody from customer service communicates with me on what's going on. So I'm unaware of anything that goes on in the background. So for me to comment on a particular issue without knowing all of the information, I would just be guessing as to what the issue is. When you say that you had an issue and you were blocked, I guess my first question would be, when did you have this issue? Because we did have a small internal issue with customer service, a small internal issue that we have dealt with. Was it during that period of time? And if it was, then apologies all around and please try again. But if it is recent, then you're asking me to comment on something of which I have no knowledge of. So I really don't know what to say on that one. Plan to take level 3 third attempt in August. Not sure where I am going wrong. I have done CFA QBank. Okay, so let me talk about, I'll do a little bit level 3 here. In, I think it's end of May, beginning of July, I'm going to have some seminar sessions for level 3, specifically for multiple repeats. So if it is your first time writing level 3 in August, you can't attend the sessions. Well, because they're not tailored for you. It's not because I'm denying you any content, is they're not tailored for you. They are really meant for candidates who have had multiple failures, because there's nothing wrong in the ability. You're at level 3. It's not your ability. It's something in your process where you've got a bit of a block, a mental block in your brain, and we just got to clear that mental block. So these 12 hours will be dedicated to clearing this mental block in certain topics that I think I know what the problem is. It is a test. I don't know if it's going to work out, but you've got to try something. And I've always thought about, the multiple failures at level 3, thinking you got to level 3. Level 3 has the highest pass rate of all the 3 levels. So if you're not making it, it's not you. It's not your ability. It's not the exam. It's something in the intersection of the two that you're just not making a mental flip over in your brain towards thinking about it a different way. And I'm hoping that these 12 hours will do something there. I don't know. We're going to find out. There can't be any downside. There can only be upside, but it is really only meant for those who've had multiple failures. So if you have your exam in August, you have access to these sessions, then attend these sessions, and we'll see if we can't get anywhere with you. Not L2 related, so a question for the end, but curious for your thoughts on preferred shares. Some pretty decent yields and credit, one of the Canadian issuers like BCE. So yeah, for the preferred shares, of all the talk about banks, and last week we found out TD is the most shorted bank by dollar value, but TD is huge, so its dollar value ends up being like 3% short on the float. Well, what stock these days hasn't got a short interest of 3%, for God's sake? Canadian banks are safe. The Canadian preferred shares are safe. There's a nice rate reset preferred ETF called ZPR that I like. Its yield is over 6% now, and it's a combination of rate reset preferreds from, I think, some utilities, some banks. I own it, and I'm going to keep buying it. I have no fear of the banks. I have no fear of the Canadian banks. Preferreds are nice. The rate resets, I think, are nice in the sense that as they reset higher, their value should increase. They haven't, but in time, we'll see what happens. As rates come down, I think their value will go up because they're 5-year rate resets. So they're all going to reset higher, but with a lag. So that's why they're selling at a discount. But as interest rates come down, as they reset, they'll suddenly have higher coupons than where rates are, and their values will increase. I can see ZPR $13, $14, $15 over the next couple of years. We're sitting at under $9, and you're getting a 6.2% yield. And you'll always have a 6.2% yield because that will always be your cost basis, is what you're buying at. And their dividends, not interest. So you're getting a fixed income-like income stream for a dividend tax rate. What's not to like about that? And you're sitting higher in the capital structure than the equity in fairly, what I think, safe companies, blue chip companies, investment grade companies. So yeah, I like the preferreds. Let's see. How would you advise an experienced data scientist with a BS in computer science and minor in math to approach the CFA program? Well, if you're going to be in finance, I think that's a nice combination of the two to have. How would you approach it? You've got a minor in math. You have computer science behind you, so you're a systems thinker. Experienced data scientist, so you must be familiar with probabilistic math as opposed to deterministic. And you've learned all of that stuff. This is just learning. It's just the content is different. You're just learning something different, but you already know how to learn. Otherwise, you wouldn't have what you have. So I don't see it as something that you have to think about of whether or not, well, can I do it because I have this as my background? No, what you have in your background is you have a proven ability to learn. There you go. What do you think is the best way to become a CFO if you're a CFA charter holder? Well, you're talking C-suite stuff, and that requires, getting to the top requires sacrifice. If you look at everyone in the C-suite, the common trait that they have, and never mind about superficial markers of identity, okay? The common trait they have is many of them, I'm saying not all of them, have been willing to sacrifice their own personal life for their career. In other words, there was no separation between their personal life and their career. Many of them have sacrificed relationships, have sacrificed friends and family for their career, because that's what it takes to get to that room. That's what it takes to get to that office, is the willingness to sacrifice. When we look at end-of-life studies, we see that very few people ever regret not spending more time at work. I wish I would have spent more time at work. I wish they measure it in terms of relationships. I wish I would have had a better relationship with my family, with my friends. I wish I would have done this. I wish I would have done that. And if you look at the difference between men and women, women are less regretful at the end of their lives than men are, because men are far more willing to sacrifice than women are. Women have already figured out a long time ago that what's important in life are the relationships. So when we look at the absence of women in the C-suite, we think, there's a disparity that has to be fixed. That is not what is going on. The proper question is not to ask how come there aren't more women who are CFOs and CEOs, but why are more women not willing to sacrifice their friends, family, and relationship for their career? They've already figured out that that's the important thing. That's what gives them meaning. So who's really successful in life when you think about it, right? But that is what it takes to get to the top, is the willingness to sacrifice. You have to sacrifice. You have to be in the office sooner than the other person and leave later than the other person. You have to have a reputation as the go-to person. You want something done, you go to that person. You have to make your boss look good all the time. Why? Because if your boss looks good, your boss is promotable. And if your boss is promotable, who do you think moves up into their spot, right? That is how you become CFO. That is how you get to the C-suite, is what are you willing to sacrifice? And that's it. If you look at the backstory of everyone in top positions, it is a backstory of sacrifice. And if you're not willing to sacrifice, well, it's not as if, this isn't, at least I hope that, a merit structure doesn't turn into a participation structure where you simply just get promoted because everybody gets a participation award, because I think that would very quickly lead to mediocrity. And there is, especially in business, this American exceptionalism, because of the culture of individualism, and because of the culture of success. As toxic as it can be sometimes, it is that very milieu that allows those people who are willing to sacrifice to move to those levels. I hope that's not lost, because if it is lost, I don't know that we could look to the US as being the home of innovation, the home of growth, the home of creativity, the home of wealth creation. It does require sacrifice. And we live in a world today that seems to want to demonize that. And I think there should be more celebration of that as opposed to demonization. Long answer to get to how do I want to be CFO, but it's a mindset. It's not an entitlement. It's not like I've been in this job for 4 years. I should be getting a promotion. Well, what did you do in the job that justifies a promotion? Everybody on the floor you're in competition with, right? You're in competition with everybody. If you're not in on the weekends, the other one is. Well, I shouldn't say there are no. I think lately there have been participation awards in American business for certain things, but there really should be no participation awards. This is a merit structure. It may look like a power structure when you look at it after, but that is only because men are far more willing to sacrifice relationships than women are. Far more willing to sacrifice relationships. So that's probably not the detail of the answer that you wanted, but if your mind is set on the top job, it is not a career trajectory. It is a lifestyle, and it is a mindset. Simple as that. Let's see. Is there a most appropriate level to start learning applied series to make the most of it and feel comfortable with the concepts? For example, is it most suitable alongside L2 or L3? I think you can probably start it at level 1, and I think it helps at level 1 for a simple reason. It gets you in the market right away, and the amount of knowledge you can absorb by simply just being in the market, by simply being in the game, by taking positions and seeing how they change, by not just being aware that there's a Fed meeting Wednesday at 2, but holding positions in a paper portfolio and watching how they change when there's a Fed meeting. You can see the mechanism, how it goes from the announcement to the market, to the interpretation, to the sentiment, how that changes value, so that you have some idea of how risky these events happen to be. Now you start to understand the concept of event risk. An FOMC meeting introduces event risk into your portfolio. So if you are a tactical trader, well, you better be aware of event risk. And what are the big event risk items? Well, if you're holding a company 4 times a year, they report earnings. Sometimes, you are very happy or very sad after earnings. You can either learn to love earnings season or hate earnings season. By the time you get to level 2 and level 3, it just becomes part of you. That now you have something of value. What is desirable is at level 1 this August is a portfolio construction extended seminar. It's going to last like 20 to 25 weeks. I don't know how long. But you're going to build a portfolio from the bottom up. In other words, we're going to start with putting our screens together. What screens are important for us to watch? We're going to need screens for fixed income, screens for rates, screens for currencies. What are the critical currencies to watch? What are the critical commodities? All of these things are market signals. Then we're going to have a list of ETFs that we like, and from each ETF, the list of stocks in that particular sector that we like, and everything is top down. You start with rates, and how does that flow to the sectors? From the sectors, how does that flow to the individual stocks? And then we're going to take positions just to learn how to take positions. At level 3, we learn about curve flatteners and curve steepeners. Well, let's actually do one. We learn in level 2 commodities, we learn on specific trades depending if a commodity curve is in contango or backwardation. Well, let's play a contango curve. Let's play a backwardated curve. Let's see what happens. Let's take a position in a foreign stock and let's hedge it out with a futures contract on the currency to hedge it out to see how easy or how difficult it is to rebalance that. Let's take a trade and with the intention of losing money on it. So that we do lose money. We're going to try to find a trade where we screw up, where we intentionally take a bad trade to lose money. And then we'll see, how do we use the options now to nullify the loss? How do we get back to zero with less capital than we started? Because going from negative 4,000 to zero is the same as closing your position, going somewhere else at zero and going to 4,000. Why not just go from negative 4,000 to zero if we can use the options to work our way out of trouble? Do that for the first year. Then do this. While you're doing CFA Level 2, build a well-balanced, well-diversified portfolio where you can do that for level 2, then for level 3. Now, what are you showing up with in your interview rooms with? You're showing up with 2 years of improving portfolio performance. You can show your Sharpe ratio. You could show your excess return. You can say, look, I've chosen the S&P as my benchmark. I've stayed true to my benchmark. I beat my benchmark in 8 quarters. Here are my returns. You can show, well, that's it, if it worked out for you. If it didn't, don't say a damn word about it. But if it worked out for you, if you have good returns, if you've learned well enough in that first year about how to trade everything and how to make the mistakes, then you have 2 years of paper trading in your portfolio to demonstrate to an employer that, look, here is my Sharpe ratio, here's my Sortino ratio, here's my maximum drawdown, here's my 8-quarter performance. You can show that in a job interview. That's powerful. Paper trading is experience. It is experience if you can show progressing. So I think starting at level 1, I think has a lot of power. You may not understand all the applied concepts, but they don't go away. In level 2, as you learn more, you go, oh, I remember this was in the applied. You can go back and watch that video. And it's meant to give you the experience to sit in that interview room that the industry didn't give you while you were studying. That's what the applied series is. It's very applied. It's very hedge fund strategy. It's tactical. It's not day trading, but it is tactical. In the sense that we are looking for alpha in all of these trades. These are alpha trades. You can get beta trades easily. Just buy SPY. There's your beta trade. Well, how do you get alpha? These are all alpha trades. So I do recommend it right at level 1. And there is no expiration for the applied series. So if you buy the level 1, the CFA Plus, you'll get the applied series. The applied series has no expiration. So when you get to level 2, you only have to buy the level 2 CFA. You don't have to buy level 2 plus because you'll already have the applied series component. Once you're done level 3, and you subscribe to our charter holder package, which we will be introducing this fall. In the charter holder package, you have the applied series, which continues on, and I keep adding to it. Not only that, in the charter holder package, you'll get, if there's any new, not updated or changed, but new readings at level 1, 2, or 3. So let's say 2 years from now, they introduce a really long Bitcoin reading. Well, you get that in the charter holder package, but you must be a charter holder to get that, or at least a level 3 graduate from us. Not just anybody's level 3 graduate. You must be from us. Then you get those readings each year. And CFAI does publish monographs from time to time where they assign certain hours to it. Like if you read this, it's 120 pages, it's worth 4 hours. And you have to do 20 hours of self-reported self-education each year. Well, those will be included as well. And we provide an audit trail so that as you go through all of the content, as soon as you hit 20 hours, we tell you and print out a report. And there you go. There's your self-report for CFAI. You can report your 20 hours each year. So I think the sooner you put the applied series on, the better it is. You know, long answer for a short question. Are you planning on a live session for level 3 sometime soon? 2 weeks. 2 weeks from today. YouTube isn't showing my comment on the market outlook today. I'm creating a dashboard to practice coding charts. What data would be interesting to chart? Dashboard to practice coding charts. What data would be interesting to chart? You know what kind of charts seem to be missing a lot from a lot of the free sites are what are called performance charts or ratio charts. Ratio charts are really useful for intermarket analysis. And a ratio chart is, let's say, you take 2 sectors. You say the consumer discretionary, the XLY divided by XLP. So it's the ratio of 2 prices and it draws out a chart. Or the ratio of oil to natural gas. Or the ratio of gold to copper, gold to silver. Or some ratio like that. The ratio of gold to copper I think would be interesting. I think different ratio charts. There's a lack of the ability to get those free. Usually they're in some kind of paid subscription somewhere because you need data series for both, and there is some cleaning up to do to match the dates. Performance charts. Performance charts means that let's say I look at SPY for a year, it starts at 0% and it gives me a percentage over the year that it's up as opposed to the price. Those are always interesting charts to use as well. It sounds like you have mostly worked for yourself over your career. If this is the case, how would you have managed to do this? And can you talk a bit about your journey? And you're right. I have primarily worked for myself. I did some prop trading through a desk for a period of time, but as a prop trader, you're still an entrepreneur, right? You're just using somebody else's system and you're using somebody else's book and somebody else's money. That's levered up for the day, and then you got to bring your leverage down for the night. And it was, at that time, it was 10 times leverage. So it was fantastic. You got 10 leverage during the day, but you had to bring your leverage down at night. Preferably for prop trading, what the desk likes to see, what the book wants to see is that you're flat going into the night. I usually had positions which wasn't really smiled upon at the time, but still, it's there's some things that I just didn't want to be flat on. I've never actually worked for anyone, believe it or not. I think I can count on one hand the number of times I've worn a tie in my life. I own 4 suits. 3 of them I've never worn from the day I bought them. They're still in the zip bag. They're still in there. I should give them away, except they were, $800 suits at the time. You hate to just hand them to a thrift shop because they won't be appreciated, but they just wouldn't fit me now. I got all of my bank funding, and I've had bank funding in excess of over $1 million for different businesses over time, all without ever showing up without a suit and tie. I pride myself on that, on being authentic to myself and never having to conform, never having to become corporate in that sense. And there were times along the way where I really questioned whether it was the right path to take, because you'd look at especially early in your career, late 20s, early 30s, you look at those people who graduated and got a job, and you look at where they are financially. And some of them were grown-ups. I say grown-ups because they're married, they bought a house, they've got a baby, and you're nowhere even near there. And you think, what have I done? I've completely missed the boat on this one. They're so grown up because you still feel like a kid. But then you start hitting your stride later on. And when you follow your own path, there is no ceiling. When you work for somebody else, you are trading 8 hours of your day for money. When you work for yourself, you're trading ideas for wealth. There is a big difference between the two, but one requires a lot more sacrifice. That if you are thinking that your meaning in life lies in family, in friends, in relationships, then don't be an entrepreneur early in life. Be one later in life, because you do sacrifice a lot of that. And you'll find that by the time you're ready for all of that, all the chairs are taken. It's like musical chairs, right? The analogy I'm using is, by the time the music stops for you, everyone's sitting down and all the chairs are taken, and they've all got lives and houses and kids and families and vacations and cottages, and you don't. You are an island. You are on your own. You must be comfortable with your oneness. You must be. Otherwise, it's not for you, because it is lonely. When you're building a business, you will have dark nights, but your staff won't. Get used to it. No one will work as hard as you do. No one will care as much as you do. No one, because they're trading hours for dollars. And the weekend hours are theirs. They're not trading theirs for dollars, but you're trading ideas for wealth. So it's 24/7. It stays with you all the time. There was Elon Musk did a long form interview with Joe Rogan. I don't know if you ever saw it. It was the one where he was smoking pot and drinking on the podcast, which, that's just him. And there was one part of truth in there where what he was saying, I said, anyone who's ever tried to build a business knows exactly what he feels in that moment when he says that, I don't think you'd want to be me. And he had this look in his face, because he does recognize what the sacrifice was. That, you see that look and you say, I know exactly what you're thinking. I know exactly what you're thinking. Is what some people see when you're successful later are the outward markers of success. They say, well, you have this, you have that, you have this. I want that. It's like, let me tell you about the road first. Before you say you want this, let me tell you about the road. You might think that, this is a nice piece of grass with a nice little pond. But there is 300 miles of desert between you and me. You got to cross the desert to get here, to get to my oasis. You're just looking at the oasis. The pathway to get there is long hours, lots of sacrifice, and it's lonely. However, depending on your personality, it is extremely rewarding to be authentic to yourself. I guess that's all I can say on that, but don't expect it to be, just all upside. It is a lot of long, dark nights sometimes to get there. And some people never get there. But if you learn well, then you're worth more to an organization after that journey. So, or, the other way around, it is sometimes you're unhireable after, because no company wants to hire its own future competition. I don't know if that's an answer. Currently reviewing for a level 2 May exam. Recently interviewed with PIMCO. for SMA PM junior role. Didn't get due to lack of experience. How can we bridge the gap between knowledge and experience? Yeah, that is sort of a catch-22. Is we need experience. Well, how do I get experience if I don't get a job? But a job wants experience, so you got that thing going on. Interning can help, but interning has turned into this big competitive fight. Anyways, it's just as hard to get an intern position at a good place as it is just to get a job. And even if you do get an intern position, are they going to actually teach you something, or are you just going to be doing unpaid grunt work that nobody else wants to do, and they're not going to pay for it? So the nice thing about finance is there are plenty of opportunities to get your own experience, which is just jump right in, open an account, open a paper account. Don't open a real account. Don't learn with real money. Learn with fake money, but pretend that it's real. You have to treat it with the seriousness as if it were, have a fake money account of $1 million and treat it like it's real. Have the same level of emotion about it, and build experience that way. That's experience. So you don't have to have it formally. You can, if you have a paper portfolio that you've documented over time that you can present, and you can say, here, yes, I know it's a paper portfolio. It's not the same, but I traded it through this broker, and these are the reports that the broker runs off. That has some validity to it, as opposed to just saying I did this in a spreadsheet. Well, you say you did it in a spreadsheet. Did you really do these trades, or did you go backwards and do them? You want to be able to do them through a system that has its own audit trail. So Interactive Brokers, if you open an account with IB, you can fund it. All you need is $2,000 to fund your account. You don't have to trade anything. You could just put that $2,000 into 2 T-bills and just keep rolling them over every 3 months. But when you log in, you can click on paper trading, and you log into a paper trading account, and off you go. IB will treat it like it's a real account, will generate the same reports for you. So you can't lie. It generates your reports for you. Even if you don't do very well, it's still experience. It's still experience. And IB does have a treasury interface. So you can buy treasuries. You can't buy any corporates in there unless you call their desk, but on paper trading, they probably won't let you. But currencies, you can trade currencies. You can trade futures. You could trade the bond futures. You could trade the STIRs, the short-term interest rate futures. There's a lot in the fixed income space that you can trade. You can do curve steepeners, curve flatteners. You can lean into duration, out of duration. You can even buy different currencies, treasuries. You can buy Mexican treasuries. You can buy Japanese treasuries. Get experience. That's experience. Even though it's not guided experience, it's still experience. What cities are good in Canada for finance jobs? Well, I think there are a number of cities. Montreal, I think it has the options exchange. Toronto is the major center. Vancouver is a center as well, and so is Calgary, only because of the amount of natural resources that are there. And so it is, and I think it has the futures exchange there. Could you please share your views on US dollar from geopolitical viewpoint, with everyone talking about shifting of power from west to east and collapse of US dollar? Well, listen, you're not going to have the collapse of the US dollar. A reserve currency is a place you run to in times of trouble. If there are times of trouble, do you want to lend your money to the Chinese government? Sorry for any of the Chinese viewers that are watching right now, but the reality is, would you rather lend your money to Uncle Sam to hide? Because you got to be safe somewhere. You need some return. You got to hide in safety. You can give it to the Chinese government, or you can give it to the U.S. government. Where do you want to put it? Think about it that way. You can lend it to the Russian government, right? I mean, think about who you would feel most safest holding on to your money. Well, there's Japan, there's Switzerland, and there is the US in terms of where do I need to hide. When institutional money has to hide somewhere, and it has to be somewhere, it runs to those three countries. It does not run to the Chinese government and say, hey, Communist Party, can you hold on to my money for me? That's not going to happen. So until there is openness and trust in the financial system, until there is trust in the structure of government and the type of government, as many problems as the US has, they're mostly social problems in terms of the polarization of the political body. But at least you have that, not just one view of things, right? So no, I don't see the US dollar losing its hegemony anytime soon. Because I think if there is something that would challenge it, it would be the euro. In future better times, it would be the euro, because it did for a while. If you go back to 2006, 2007, 2008, the euro looked like it could be the challenger of the US dollar. But if anything would challenge the US dollar, it's going to be the euro, not a currency on the other side of the block. When I say the block, you have the Western style democracies versus the other side, which are not Western style democracies. I just don't see, the wealth is concentrated in the Western style democracies, and it needs a trusting place to go to. And I just don't see that as being the Chinese government right now. So I'm not too concerned about that. Regarding your journey, did you manage to have a family eventually? No, I did not. Do I regret that? I don't think I do. I don't think I regret that. No, I didn't. I never got married. No kids. Well, that I know of. I mean, that's all you can say. I don't think I had have any out there. But no, I don't have any regrets on that. I have an addictive personality, which means when I get into something, I get addicted to it, which is why I can spend hours and hours doing this kind of thing. That I think that if I did have a family along the way, that would be my regret, would be my inability to have done it well. So I have saved some people from being inflicted by me. Let's put it that way. Where are these paper accounts opened? Any broker should have a paper trading account. Interactive Brokers is probably the best one. But if you just want really good paper trading, StockTrack is a really good one, but it has a monthly fee. I think it's like $35 or $40 a month, but StockTrack is a really good one. What I don't like about StockTrack, and maybe they fix this, is it's delayed data, which means it's 20 minutes delayed. A lot of paper trading accounts will give you delayed data. Well, you can always game delayed data, because you can watch the markets at 8:30 when the CPI report comes out, and you can see that futures went straight up. Well, since your paper account is 20 minutes delayed, you already know that in 20 minutes, futures are going to go up. So you can load up on futures, and you can game this. You can game a paper account. Interactive Brokers doesn't have delayed data on your paper account, so you can't game it. So make sure that if you do some paper trading, that your types of investments are not tactical trades, because you can game the system. They're long-term, like you're showing that you are a long-term investor, not a trader, but an investor. Then a 20-minute delay means nothing for an investor. Who cares, right? In the past, you made a video using the Interactive Brokers Portfolio Builder. It seems they have since removed the functionality. I don't know. I can't access it now. It's on in the background, but I don't want to start clicking around. So I don't know about that. I'll have to look into that. Sorry if this has been asked. Just tuning in. Still time to prepare for L2 August. Yeah, there's still time to prepare. It's 4 months. Time is tight, but there's time. but if you say, I have a full-time job, I just got married, and we have twin kids, oh, and I got to walk the dog every morning and night. Well, then, oh, and I want to stay at the gym 3 hours a night. Then no, not 4 months. It depends on the amount of time that you want to put in per day. And if you say I can only squeeze an hour in with 4 months to go, no, I'm not going to say no, you can't do it. I'm going to say the probabilities are such that it would be very few who could do that. Can you recommend some of your favorite books? Most of my favorite books are not finance books, believe it or not. I think my favorite finance book of all time was Traders, Guns, and Money. It was just written so well. It was such a compelling story that I really liked it. Pitbull was another good one that was written well, but it's written in the 80s. But it gives you a good insight into the life of a trader. I think my favorite books are more in terms of I don't know that I'd have a favorite outside. When I think about books, there's books to expand your mind in terms of exploring different ideas and concepts, and then there's books that really deal with your profession, to get you more knowledge in your profession. I call those more utilitarian books. Are they useful in progressing forward, as opposed to being this journey of thought? And it's more in terms of philosophy that I find that you have some real interesting things that you can think about. It's nothing that you can bring to the market in that sense, but it's just a way of rethinking about things, that you've had a perspective on something. And then if you could just, see it through a different way of thinking, that if you can look at the world in different ways, you could start to find where the center is. And the center seems to be the most, I think, desirable place to be, which is sorely lacking today. It also allows you to, think about very good arguments or counter arguments to certain ideologies that you may or may not agree with. So you may buy into a certain ideology. Well, philosophy gives you a way of seeing the way you see the world through a different perspective that could, temper your view, or, better inform your view, such that, nothing in this world is good or bad. It's only the way you think about it that makes it so. Right. So, freedom fighter or terrorist, depends on what side of the gun you're standing on. How can we understand the terrorists? We call them terrorists, but no terrorist says, I'm a terrorist. Look at me. They believe in something completely different. Well, how are they seeing the world? If you're going to understand them, you have to see the world the way they see the world. Well, that's not an unrealistic journey to take. So, I like exploring. I think I find most resonance with Nietzsche because of his focus on the individual, and it's not a selfish philosophy in the least, and it's not a supremacist philosophy as most people think it is. It's not. It's a liberating philosophy for the individual. It gives you permission to be who you want to be, without having to worry about conformity. And I would seem to think that a lot of the radical thinkers on the left would embrace Nietzsche a lot more than they do, but they don't, because I think they associate him with sort of a supremacist ideology, which is not at all what he was advocating. So if you're looking for meaning in life, you can find it in the philosophers, in the poets. Shakespeare is just absolutely wonderful for this. I think he just was so good at the human condition. His stories weren't great, I mean, really, the plots weren't really that great. They were rather predictable. Hey, we're going to read this story. Let me guess, people die at the end. Well, it's like every opera, somebody dies at the end, but it's how we get there. And he was such a good chronicler in, I think, a beautiful way of explaining the difficult, or maybe not difficult, but the hard to put in words human condition, that he could sum it up in a couple of sentences, a nice little rhyming couplet that just captured the essence of the human condition that, a 1,000-word essay might have had a hard time doing. I like those sorts of things. Let's see. Richest CFA you ever met? That I ever met? I wouldn't have an answer for that because that's not a question you ask. So I wouldn't be able to tell you who was, because you simply just don't ask that question. How much money you got? I mean, it's just not something that's asked ever. So I don't know. Any thoughts on the proposals for a Latin American common currency? Not really. Not really. For the candidates and charter holders that have struggled to get a job in the industry or build a successful career, what have you identified in them that you think has held them back? I don't think I've identified anything that has held them back, in the sense, because I haven't done any surveys or any research on those that did get a job versus those that didn't get a job. So I don't know. I couldn't point to anything. But if I had to, off the top of my head, come up with some hypotheses and this is what you do before you do research, is you come up with some variables that you think matter, because you can't possibly do the research unless you know what variables you're measuring first. So you'd have to have some hypotheses of what it would be. Social network would probably be one of the bigger ones. Is what have you done to build your social network? Who knows you? Right? It's not a matter of who do you know, who knows you. And if nobody knows you, then it's hard, because this is a connected industry. There are, some firms that have target schools, and that's it. If you're outside of those target schools, you're probably not going anywhere. Not with them, at least not until you prove yourself somewhere else. You have to have a network. And I think there should be more time in this program dedicated towards how you do that. Now, one of the big things you can do is find out where your local CFA society is, and join your local CFA society and go to those events. That's a big networking. That's a big networking event. So if you're in a city which has a CFA society and you're not part of that CFA society, the question then is, well, why aren't you? What is it that you feel, or how is it that you feel that that's not an important thing to do? I would probably put that as one of the variables, that those who probably went on to get jobs, I'd say a significant number of them, statistically speaking, knew somebody, that it had something to do with a relationship outside of work, as opposed to, well, I just sent a resume in, they called me up, they said, you want a job. I think that happens very rarely. A lot of times it's who you know that gets you in. So I would say it's probably the social network side of things. Let's see. Running a business is like chewing glass and staring into the abyss. After a while, you stop staring, but the glass chewing never ends. Elon Musk. Yeah, it's kind of like what it's like. Do you plan to have a family with kids? Wow. At my age, probably not. I don't think so. That's a young person's fight. I mean, by the time if you're pushing into your 40s and you haven't really done that, never married, no kids, pushing into your 40s, that is a big lifestyle change. At that point, you almost have to do it when you're in your late 20s, early 30s. I think that the longer you go, the harder it is to begin to share your space, to share your life, to suddenly not be able to do what you want, when you want, how you want, with who you want. But now you almost feel constrained because, well, you can't just do what you want, when you want, where you want, with who you want, right? So I get up when I want, I go to sleep when I want, I go to the gym when I want, I eat what I want, when I want, how I want. I don't want to give that up. Okay, let's see what else we got here. Theo Vaughn had his son at 78 years old. You have decades left. Wow. 78. Is that fair to have a son at 78 to die while that son might be 10 or 11 and to not be in that person's life when they most need it in their teenage years or older, to have such a wide generation gap that you can never really understand the world that person is growing up in at that age? I think that is rather selfish and unfair to do that. I give to certain charities, Pastone Mental Health, which helps kids, Big Brothers Big Sisters, which helps kids, Jillian's Place, which is a place for women having a tough time with men to go to, and usually they have kids. I do Christmas programs for the kids. Rather than having kids, this is the way that I help. This is the way that I try to be not a father per se, but something in their lives that they don't have, by allowing my money to do the heavy lifting. But to say that, well, I should have a child of which I'm not going to be that connected to simply because of this distance in age. At 78, the probability of living long enough to see that person through university and to understand the person, to connect with the person, to teach them how to skate, how to play hockey, how to play baseball, how to hold up their fists when you're not doing that at 78. You're not that male role model in that kid's life. You're doing it because you're at a certain age where you want to perpetuate your legacy. It's a very selfish thing to do, in my opinion. If you're going to have children, I think you should give them the best years of your life, late 20s, early 30s. That's a selfless thing to do. So this person, I don't know who this person is, but I would probably say that they did it more for themselves than for anybody else. That's a rather selfish thing. Let's see. What are your advice for to be a finance professional who's planning on immigrating to Canada? I don't know that I would have any different advice if you were going to UK, if you're going to Germany or the US. I don't think I'd have any different advice at all. No, I don't know that coming to Canada requires any different advice than anywhere else. So I find waking up early, study before work the best. I agree. I find some of your videos very long and tend to lose focus. Any advice? You don't have to watch them all in one sitting. Watch them in 10-minute segments. Just say, I am going to listen carefully for 10 minutes and that's it. Then take a break. Go walk around. Think about what I said. Come back and watch another 10 minutes. You don't have to watch all 3 hours at one time. Just watch what you want and just be done. What else we have here? Are you still holding on to Northwest Healthcare? No, I've sold all of my REITs. If you listen to the market updates that I do every Sunday, about 4 weeks ago, I said that I am now fully out of all my REITs. all of them all together. I think that commercial real estate has some tough times ahead, and I did okay on them. I took a loss, but over the months, I was selling calls on IYR to hedge out my REIT portfolio, the section of my portfolio that were REITs. And then it got to a point where I just couldn't find the bull case in REITs at all, and it was nothing but bearishness. I couldn't find the upside or the story of how we get there in the next 6 months or even a year. It was multiple years of underperformance before it started to perform well. That was it. That's the end of it. I'm out of every equity REIT that I had. Your advice on marriage, love, etc. to youngsters. Well, I don't have advice on marriage at all. I'm not I'm not a person to be giving advice on something I've never done at all. So I would avoid that, any advice there. As far as advice on love, I remember hearing this when I was younger, and I kept thinking, "Oh, that's not an answer." And it was always, "You'll know it. You'll know it when it happens. You'll just know it. You won't have to ask. You'll know it." And I can tell you that is exactly how it is. You will just know it. You will just know it. There won't be any question whatsoever. And if you don't have that, don't enter into the contract of marriage. Don't. You have to have that. If you say, "Is this the right thing?" then it's not. You will just know it. I've been there, and it hits you all at once. It's just this thing that comes over you where you just know it, period. Let's see. When should someone give up on trying to pass level 2 and move on to something else? When you have no passion for it. When you've decided that, you know what, I don't even like this stuff. What am I doing? I don't even enjoy this. When you get to that point that you've decided that I don't even like this, that's when you should stop. But if you love the field of finance, if you love the industry, if this is something you want to do, but you just can't get past an exam, then there's something wrong in your process. You just need to speak with someone about your process, and it might be worth spending a few dollars on somebody who's been through it. And we have academic counseling that's led by charter holders who have been through this. That for an hour will talk you through it and say, "Okay, well, tell me what you've done." And we'll talk about different ways that you could do things. There's something wrong in the process in which you're doing it, if your passion is there. But if you have no passion, if you're doing it because you think you just have to add letters behind your name to be more marketable, if that's all you're doing it for, but you don't really love it, if every time you think about opening the books, you go, "Oh, God, I hate this," stop. Just stop. I buy certain books that I read, and as soon as I get bored with the writer going, "Ugh," I stop reading. I don't think I got to get my $80 out of this book. I only read 2 chapters. I gotta read it all to get my money. I just stop. It's okay to take a loss. And finance, a part of being really successful in finance is knowing when to take your losses. If you're not having fun and you don't enjoy it, stop. Just stop doing it. Do something else, because you'll never be good at it. If you don't enjoy it and it's work, you're never going to be good at it, because you're going to be a clock watcher. That means it's 4:30. Oh, thank God the day is done. Because you can't imagine staying there till 7. But if you love what you're doing, you look up and you go, "Holy shit, it's 7:00. That's when you know you're where you need to be. But if you're watching that clock and you're going, "Come on, I can't take this anymore," stop. Do something else. Do you see better career future opportunity in fundamental strategies, bottom up and concentrate, or quantitative factor-based portfolio? I think you're going to have a tough time in quantitative factor-based portfolios, because I think that if AI can move anywhere, it'll probably move there faster, because that's easy to get to. You can probably have AI develop a portfolio for you if you tell it what factor exposures you want, but I don't know whether or not it will have the ability to determine when to shift, when to move out of one factor into another factor. I think it'll, I don't know. It'll be interesting to see where it goes on that respect. Do you see better career future and fundamental strategies? Well, there's another one, right? There's fundamental strategies, bottom up. There is also top down, which does not have to be factor based. And you can still have bottom up factor based strategies, and you can still have top down factor based strategies. So, a bottom up factor based strategy would be quality, dividend yield, value, things like that. Top down factor based strategy, growth, size, momentum, things like that. So, bottom up and factor based are not two, do not have to be two separate things. I'm terrible at coding and very slow at learning it. Do you think this is a deterrent for a CFA? No, it's not, because you can always hire a coder. So you don't need to know it all. You just need to know where to hire it from. But you don't need to know it all. Please don't forget the environmental commodities before the session ends. Would really appreciate your view on the matter. Well, when you say environmental commodities, I'm not sure exactly what you mean, but I'm going to take a stab at this. If you're thinking about the shift to greener energy, EV, solar, wind, all of that takes huge amounts of copper. An EV will use 3 times more copper than internal combustion because, well, it's electric. So electric has to travel on something, and that's electric wiring, because it travels at half the speed of light. The electrons will travel at half the speed of light through copper. It's the best conductor. There just aren't enough. There's not enough capacity to meet all of that, all of the demand, if all of this investment in the transition occurs. Copper is going to be the big winner. I think oil will continue to outperform for quite some time, because I don't think you're going to be able to shift when everyone starts to shift to, let's green out our electric grid. You're going to hit wall of supply after wall of supply in the materials to get that done. The idea that we can phase out internal combustion engines by 2035 is a fantasy. Oil will be with us much longer than that, and it'll become scarce, because right now no oil company has any incentive whatsoever to invest in the exploration of any new oil. So what we have is what we have. And smaller companies will get bought up or fail. 5 or 6 years, you'll have a very oligopolistic industry with power concentrated in the suppliers. And they will keep shutting down supply and shutting down supply and shutting down supply. So I think that the traditional forms of energy have plenty of upside. I think if you're going into the newer forms of energy, go as far upstream as you can, go straight to copper. Why play this and play that and play this and play that? There's one thing common to all of it, and that's copper. Play copper. Also, you have to build stuff. You got to build stuff for energy. You got to build solar. You got to build solar panels. You got to build wind turbines. There's a whole bunch of infrastructure that has to change as well. But that all takes stuff, and stuff always starts with the miners. Go as far backstream as you can. Go all the way back to the miners. You want to play an energy transition? It's the miners. Period. All the miners. And buy the biggest. Buy the best in class, the biggest. Freeport, BHP, Rio, buy the big ones. Tech Resources. And I think on the next cycle, I think those will win significantly. So I don't know that I would look for environmental commodities and say, let me be here, let me be there, let me be here and here. Copper, if I had to pick one metal, it would be copper all the way. If I had to pick one sector, it would be mining and metals. That would be it. Less and less people are having kids, with peak in demographics impact adversely the equity markets. I've thought about that. It certainly would impact consumption. it would certainly impact GDP growth. You'd have to have a new definition for GDP growth. Otherwise, you'd continually have negative GDP growth. Japan's got a problem. China's going to have a problem later this decade, a big problem later this decade. Canada, not so much, because Canada is super open to immigration. So it will import population growth. It doesn't have to have it organically. I think the planet is going to have a problem because there is a peak and then an expected decline. And it's the decline that's going to be a problem because it shrinks the gene pool significantly. And you get to a certain point where it becomes unviable, which is maybe a century away before you have to start thinking of that. But, there is lots of science that shows that if you have population control in certain animal herds, deer herds, wildebeests, wolves, for example, that it has a whole bunch of other effects as well. And we do engage in population control for the sake of the population for many different species, except humans. Humans, for some reason, we have this moral code that applies to humans where we say, here are rules we must live by, but we find it perfectly okay to put population control on this herd of deer. We're going to have a deer call, which means we'll kill so many deer for the sake of the population, but never would we think about any kind of interference in the human population in that sense. So we sort of just say what happens will happen. And I think there'll come a time, probably in 100 years, where there will have to be more concern over how you manage a population of humans as well. And here, Nietzsche again can help us in his book, Beyond Good and Evil, which I think is a good book. In there, he talks about this concept of good and evil being purely just a human concept. And why do we have it? We must get beyond this concept of good and evil. For example, when we see a lion kill a gazelle, do we say that's an evil lion? No, we say nothing about that. We say, well, that was the strongest lion and that was the weakest gazelle, and that is good for both populations. And if you want the human population to become survival of the fittest and to actually evolve upwards, you have to get beyond these concepts of good and evil. This is something I think the human population is going to have to reckon with at some point in time. China and Japan are facing very bad demographics. And if you continually push for this growing GDP all the time, how can you do that with a shrinking population? I mean, how can you do that? You're going to have a different definition of what growth means. I don't know what that looks like. That's for minds that are far better than I am. But I thought about this in terms of equity markets. What would it mean if the world population started shrinking? Would it mean the end of equity markets? Would it mean a prolonged bear market for a long period of time? I don't think so. I think it would mean a lot of firm death, and I think you'd have fewer firms that would be just as successful. So I don't know that the equity markets would suffer in that respect. If at that point in time, fast forward 100 years, if at that point in time we still find that an acceptable form of existence, I don't know. My one regret I have is that I won't be around to actually see that. You want to see the future, right? I want to see how that unfolds. I just don't know how it will. But I think the forecast now for the global population is it will peak at 8 billion and then decline from there. Decline is hard to stop. It's very hard to stop decline, which is when you hear people talk about we have a population crisis in the sense that we're not growing fast enough. That's what they mean. A declining population is brutally difficult to stop. it gains its own speed. No matter what you do, it becomes hard to stop. And I think that China and Japan both are facing the reality of having this runaway, shrinking of the population. There are some estimates that in 40 years, 50 years, Japan will be half the size it is now. Now, I want you to think about what that looks like every 5-10 years if your population is going from 180 to 170, 160, 150, 140 million. How do you maintain a growing GDP? With that, you have to change your definition of growth to GDP per capita only, accepting a lower and lower GDP. What will happen to a lot of the companies in Japan? Well, they'll simply disappear because there'll be a smaller population to service. So you'd probably still have equity markets. You just have fewer companies to choose from. But you'd have a smaller population, so the number of companies per 1,000 people would be constant. Just the population would be shrinking. China's even worse if you look at its demographics, and it is expected to shrink by about 50% over the next period of time. But you're going from 1.3, 1.4 billion down to 600 million over the next. I think the most aggressive one was Peter Zeihan. He said the next 30 years. Think about losing that many people in just a 30-year period, how fast and rapid that is. That's a big problem on the horizon. I don't know how that gets solved. Let's see. Your views in general on India as a country. I don't know. I've never been to India. I've never really studied India. So I don't know what my views would be. I would say there is no shortage of labor in India. So if, you were looking for a place to invest where you had a big labor pool, well, there it is. Whether the infrastructure exists, I don't know. I don't know the country well enough to know if the infrastructure exists. I have heard, that the interior, that sometimes food prices are extremely high, not because there's a shortage of food in India, it's just because try to get it there, that transportation is difficult. I think the caste system is an issue. I don't know enough about it to really fully understand it, but it maybe it's just a legacy of history, or maybe it's still in play today. But I do think it is an issue. I think there is social issues in India that need to be dealt with, but there are social issues in every country that need to be dealt with. They're just different social issues. But overall, I don't know enough about it to have much of an opinion on it, positive or negative, in that sense. I know that I would probably never visit India, only because I just don't like big crowds. And everything I've seen about India is just, it's bloody crowded. Also, I don't like tigers just roaming around the wilderness. You're driving your car down the road and just a tiger jumps out at you. I've seen enough of those videos on YouTube to say, okay, you know how to avoid being attacked by a tiger? You don't go where they are. They're in India. Good. I'll stay here. We have no tigers in the Niagara region. There's no tigers. There's no bears. There's no wolves. We got coyotes, but they're afraid of us. We can chase a coyote. You can chase 5 coyotes and they'll run away from you. It's not a big deal. We got raccoons, rabbits, chipmunks, squirrels. Nothing is going to attack me. We got no mountain lions. We got no bobcats. We got no cougars. We got none of that kind of stuff. It's a great place to be. That on its own, I'm not going. New topics for the applied series. So every year at this time, I have to turn my attention towards CFA content. So I expect to be done by mid-June, end of June completely, and then July through to January is the applied series. I am working because it seemed like it's a good timely timely time. It seemed timely to do it now. I am for the sector studies there. I have done the sector on financials. I'm going to expand it with a long seminar, probably 2.5, 3 hour video on how you would analyze a simple bank. And when I say a simple bank, I don't mean like a JP Morgan. I mean a regional bank, a bank that is in the business, that runs a banking book, but not a banking book and a trading book, and is doing investment banking and that kind of stuff. A deposit-taking, loan-making institution. How would you analyze that? Because there is, risk management in liquidity and interest rate risk. That's simpler to understand there. And when you can understand the banking book, then you can go on to say, okay, well, what about the trading book? And how do you manage risk in the trading book? Then you can start looking at those banks that have fees and commissions, especially in capital markets and investment banking, wealth management, things like that. So the bigger ones like JP Morgan are complex to understand. But if you can understand the regional bank, then you're just layering on those extra things on top of that. So I'm working on that now, probably a couple of weeks, and that one will be up. There'll be more in this fall. The applied options is getting an upgrade. Just moving things around. I found that after I did it, I thought, well, I can move this closer to the beginning. I can upgrade the prerequisite ones because I'm really just using readings from John Hall's book for that one to get done. But I think I can do it a little bit better, and just make the flow a little bit better. Maybe update it with some better examples throughout. There'll be more added to the futures section, specifically for short-term interest rates, because I've got equities and treasuries in there. So short-term interest rates and some of the energy futures, particularly oil, natural gas, and maybe heating oil and gasoline, because that just flows off of oil to begin with. I think I'm also adding more on the sectors. 5 of the 11 sectors are done. I'll probably add more sectors to that, and a few more of the bottom-up analysis. A regional bank, a mining company, because I think we should be able to analyze a mining company, because I think it's going to be important for the next bull run. Is if you don't have mining companies in your portfolio, you're missing a huge outperforming sector, or what I think will be a huge outperforming sector. So there's some good things coming for the applied series, but I got to get past the CFA stuff first. 9:18, we should wrap up soon here. Let's see. Was chased by a cow the other day. Well, yeah, that's the thing, right? I mean, I'm not going where an animal is going to chase me. Would someone with engineering background who passed level 2 have any chance to get into the industry? Yeah, why not? Would having math background, coding, help get into quant jobs without finance? Well, I don't know why having an engineering background would stop you from getting into the industry. It would help you understand certain businesses better because you have that background in depending on what type of engineering you have a background. So, it's like, would a doctor do well in the markets? Well, they'll understand biotech really well. So yeah, I mean, sure, everyone has some background where a particular sector of the market is far more understandable to them. Let's say that you've worked on construction sites, building homes for 20 years, and you're entering into the market. Well, don't you think you'd be really good at that sector of home building and building supplies? Don't you think that you'd understand that business model better, and you'd understand the difference between the home builders? Well, Toll Brothers is building higher end homes. They have this type of customer, and Lennar and DH are building, middle type to lower end pricing houses. They'll have this customer, but they got the. Don't you think you'd understand it a lot better than somebody who's never built a house? I think so. I think so. So whatever your background is, it just means that there's some types of businesses that you'd understand a lot better than other people would. Let's see. In level 2, can we expect questions that may build on top of each other? No, that's called a cascading question. No, you're not going to get cascading questions. How is the global acceptance of CFA, to be specific, in Europe? I can't speak to that in Europe because I'm not there, but it does have a high level of recognition globally. I do know that. Otherwise, it wouldn't have testing centers in almost every country. So there must be demand for it, right? Would love to see a course on growing a small account like you are doing on the $1 million. Well, that starts in August. If you want to see an account on how you take an account and you grow it, you can even call it $100,000 account. You could replicate what I'm doing, and you could turn yours into a $50,000 account. The paper portfolio you can set to your own level, and you just scale down the trades to be smaller trades. And there are always futures options that are, you can have a normal futures contract, a mini contract, and there's a micro contract as well. You don't have to trade the big contracts, right? Live in Niagara Falls. Good to know we're neighbors. Yeah, I'm in Font Hill. Just sort of up the road from Niagara Falls. I go down to Niagara Falls about every 3 weeks to the Costco. Oh, and I also go to Can-Do to have my water tested in my hot tub and for the summer, the pool. So I'm in Niagara Falls about every 3 weeks. Let's see. Do you have any tips to have CFA approve your work experience for the charter without lying? Well, don't lie on the application. Don't do that. There's been a lot of stories online about candidates in questionable roles to be approved. Don't cross that line. Just don't cross that line. If you don't have the work experience, well, you don't have the work experience. Get it, or just say what you've done. I mean, say what you've done. There might be 20% of your job that applies, but if you've been there 8 years, well, then that's 1.6 years really of work experience. It might count, but I don't know that I would be lying. You lie on that, you run the risk of getting caught, and then that's the end of it. That's the end of it. So, just what kind of person do you want to be? You got to be true to yourself, right? Would love to see a course. Okay, so I said, if you had to redo your life, what university, major, school, subject would you study? Which career would you choose instead of what you're doing at the moment? I had this conversation just the other day that if I had to go back in time and change just one thing, what would it be? And it would be nothing. Not even the mistakes I've made. I wouldn't even change that, because I am happy with where I am today. And if I go back and change anything, butterfly effect, right? Small changes in initial conditions can create huge changes downstream. That's, chaos theory, complexity theory, the butterfly effect. I run the risk of not being here, and I have meaning in my life, and I am in an equilibrium where I am generally happy. Oh, I get frustrated at things, but generally I'm a happy person. I love the position I have in life right now. If I change anything, even the big mistake, and everyone has one big mistake, and I've got one. Everyone has one big mistake. Even if I go back and change the big mistake, I wouldn't be here. I don't know where I'd be. I'd be somewhere else. I don't want to take the chance. Now, if I was unhappy with where I was, and I just said, this didn't work out at all, and I was asked, if you could go back and change one thing, what would it be? I'd probably have an answer. Somebody who has an answer means that somebody hasn't arrived at where they want to be. But that's okay, because no matter where on the road you are, it's not one straight road. You're not path dependent. If you think that you can go back in life to change one thing to change where you are, then just change where you are. Change what you're doing today. So rather than saying, if I could go back and change one thing, say this: if I could change one thing in my life today, what would it be? That's a more actionable thing. Saying, well, if I could go back and change one thing, that's nostalgic, it's reminiscent, and has in it, I think, a coating of regret. Because if you can go back and change something, there's something that's wrong today. I wouldn't change anything. I wouldn't change a single thing because, again, being informed with chaos theory, if you change anything in initial conditions and you follow that timeline out, it can result in big changes downstream. We can see this when we use something called simulation techniques, where we're going to do a simulation where we run trials 1,000 times on something. If you change just one little variable, you can get a whole different set of distributional outcomes just by changing one small little input. And even if you don't change the inputs, but you run the simulation again with the same set of inputs, you could get a different outcome because life is probabilistic. There's no guarantee that you'll make the same decisions again. Now, there is only one condition under which I would go back and change something. And that's if I could go back knowing what I know today. That means put me back 20 years and I have all the experience I have now. I know what I know today 20 years ago. My God, the world will be mine. The world would be mine. But if I have to do it all over again in this veil of ignorance about what the future will hold, I don't want to take the chance that it would go the wrong way. So no, I wouldn't change a thing. I have no regrets. Well, I regret certain things, but I have no regrets today. What do you think about the merger of UBS and Credit Suisse and its government-backed guarantee under the circumstances? Was it the best solution? I think it was. I think it was the only solution. Will it change the banking industry? I don't know. I don't know about that. Will it change the banking industry? Listen, humans are probably the most mean-reverting creatures there are. And we have short memories. And we are all creatures of habit, which makes us so easy to assassinate because we are creatures of habit. And just follow us for a couple of days, when we'll be there, and who will be a witness, right? So will it change anything? Well, only if people change. But if everyone goes back to business as normal, if human behavior is mean reverting and we have short memories, I don't think it's going to change anything. Does Interactive Brokers paper trading allow for options? It allows for everything that you normally get through the platform, everything. How should one approach commodity trading, specifically crude and silver? Very carefully. Unless you know what you're doing, you'll get crushed. You will get hurt. Those are brutally difficult markets to trade, crude and silver. Very difficult markets to trade. You have to have a lot of skill in those particular fields. There are easier fights to win, but those are challenging. Yeah, very challenging. Paper portfolio program starting in August. Will that be a separate stream it will be within the applied series, but yes, it will be a separate folder within the applied series. It is an applied seminar that applies everything from the applied series. So we're going to do a lot of things in there. Thoughts on Trailer Park Boys? Absolute classic. I could watch it again and again and again. It was an absolute classic. The other great Canadian classic that I love right now is Letterkenny. Absolutely fantastic. So if you like Trailer Park Boys, Letterkenny is not the same thing, but Letterkenny is very Canadian. But it's got those kind of lovable kind of characters in there, right? But I like them. But Trailer Park Boys was a classic. It was just a classic. Do you still plan to cover the entire CMT curriculum? I do. I still plan to do it. I got frustrated with it because I was going through one of the readings, and in my mind, I kept thinking, this is a giant pile of horseshit. This is just a big pile of horseshit. I cannot, in all good conscience, teach this like it's real, because it's not. It's a giant pile of horseshit. So I just got so frustrated with it. I thought, what am I doing? Why am I doing this? It would be like me teaching a seminar on reading tea leaves at the bottom of a teacup, or teaching you about how solar flares affect the sky. It's bullshit. But I thought, well, maybe I just need a break away from it, and then I'll come back to it. And yes, it's horseshit. But some people like it. Some people, it is a designation that some people may want. And I think it's horseshit. That doesn't mean the world thinks it's horseshit. There are some philosophers I think are, this is ridiculous. But I do have to learn them as if it is real. So, okay, maybe I don't have to believe in it, but I have to teach it as if it were real. I have to teach it with the same truth in it as if it did have truth, even though I know it's a pile of horseshit. That's the division in my brain. One half of my brain says, what are you doing? Lowering yourself to this standard. The other half says, hey, that's just your opinion, though. That's not everybody's opinion. Just because you have the opinion doesn't mean you're right. There are people who do this for a living, so it's something. I'm having that internal fight in my brain right now, or at least I did, but I will get back to it. It's the charting part that is the worst. The intermarket analysis is not bad. Some of the other sections are not bad at all. It's when you get to the charting and all these lines on charts, it's like, oh, give me a break. But I will try to get it done. Let's see. How about red green? Never was a big fan of red green. Thoughts on South Park? Brilliantly written. I think it is massively underrated as a commentary on some of the social issues and the absurdity of some of the things out there. I think South Park does a good job of pointing out the absurdity of some things. I think it's fantastic. I liked it from day one. It really didn't. The first 5, 6, 7 seasons was just more juvenile kind of humor, which was fun sometimes, right? But then it didn't start getting thoughtful until later on. I'd say the last, from like season 11, 12 onwards, started getting more thoughtful, and I appreciate that. It's written so well. In previous videos, you said that FDIC should cover the deposit losses from SVB, even though the guarantee was $250 in writing before it was changed. Would you say a AT1 bondholder should be covered? No. No. It says right on the first page of the prospectus. Look about a third of the way down on the prospectus. You're a bondholder. You get to read the prospectus. You read it, and it says that these on this type of event, the value of these will be written down to zero. It says right on the front page in bold, and I think they even had bold italics to make the point. It says right on the front page, if there is an event, that happened like this, the value of these bonds will be written down to zero. That was the deal you made. That was the deal they made. They didn't just take a bunch of bonds and say, oh, well, let's just ignore capital structure and throw these out. These ranked below equity. In the capital structure, the AT1 bonds were below equity. They got wiped out. That was the deal they signed on to. So I don't think they should be bailed out. Let's see, past level 1 using your level 1 study guide. Thank you and appreciate everything you do for us. We're taking summer off and doing L2 May 24 at the risk of forgetting. You won't forget. Well, I mean, you'll forget, but you'll remember easily. Go ahead. Enjoy the summer. Sure. I see no problem with that. Your stance on FDIC and AT1 seems to be at odds and not consistent. Can you explain? If I'm buying bonds, I'm an investor. I am buying a security. I am in a position to evaluate those securities. I'm in a position to read that prospectus and evaluate it. If I am bringing my money to a bank to deposit it, and we have many people bringing money to the bank to deposit it, they are not in a position to start doing a credit analysis on the bank. They are not in a position to start evaluating banks in that respect. The idea that insurance only goes up to $250 to me seems absolutely ridiculous. If I had 10 banks and I had $250 in each bank, I'm covered for 2.5 million. Well, why not just have it all in one bank? Oh, well, if one bank fails, that's a lot of money. Well, if you take all of the money in the banking system and you do this $250,000 sweep and you start opening accounts, every bank would probably still have the same bank balance. But to expect your customers to be in a position to read a prospectus and to evaluate a bank before opening up a savings or a checking account is a ridiculous statement to make. To suggest that you're not insured for anything above 250, how would you ever protect a business that has a staff of 100 where payroll every 2 weeks is 1.2 million? Yeah, think about the absolute mess of trying to get that done if you always had to worry about the 250. No consumer is in a position to evaluate a bank. But if you're a bond investor and you're buying the AT1 bonds, come on. That's your job. That's your job. So it is not at odds. You cannot expect the average person on the street to be sophisticated enough to evaluate a bank to determine whether to put money into it. But if you are selling them AT1 bonds with a prospectus, the investor knows what they're investing in. They know what they're investing in. Now, the shareholders were not made whole of SVB because they bought a security. But the depositors were, because they were not investing in anything risky. They weren't buying risky securities. They were putting their money in a bank. I don't think there should be a limit on the amount of insurance if your money is in a regulated bank. There should be no limit on that insurance. Why 250? We keep saying, well, why is inflation 2%? Why not 3%? Well, why is the insurance 250? Why not 251? Why not 252? Why 250? That seems like an arbitrary number to me, right? So increase it. If you increase it, you won't have runs like this. You won't have this idea of, well, there's this much uninsured deposits. Banks make billions of dollars. So just charge more in insurance. They pass it through anyway. So I would feel better if everything were insured, because now, do I have to get TD's statements out and start evaluating TD and sitting on analyst calls and wondering whether or not, I'm in no position to start. Well, maybe I am, but most people are in no position to start analyzing their bank. So I don't think it's at odds. Which of these courses would you pick if you had to pick only 4? Futures and options, capital budgeting, trading and market data management, portfolio theory, mergers and acquisitions. I'd get rid of capital budgeting. That's an internal thing. I don't find it interesting at all. I'd probably get rid of portfolio theory and management. You've got more. Well, I'm not going to pick your curriculum for you. You're going to have to do it on what you find is interesting. I said what I would get rid of, but that's just me. I'm not taking the courses, right? So, okay, I think I'll grab a couple more here at random, and then we'll end it. What impacts the EFFR? The central bank target range. That's it. The central bank has a target range for their rate, and the effective federal funds rate will be in between that range. It seems to always be about 8 bips higher than the low end. Not always 8, but as long as it's in the range, that's where it would be. But there's a bunch of different rates at which transactions are affected at. The effective federal funds rate is, I think, you get rid of the top 20%, the bottom 20, and you take the rest and you average it and you get the number. It's usually fairly constant from day to day. And I think that's it here. Paper portfolio simulation. August, are you going to paper trade or use real money? I'm going to paper trade like everyone else in that one, because we're going to just do things to do things. Our goal initially is not to make money, and we are going to get into trouble. We are going to take some positions, or at least I'm going to encourage you to find some positions that you think are losers, and I'm going to tell you to take those trades and to lose money. so that we can see how we work our way out of a loss. I don't want you doing that with real money. So I'm going to use paper trading as well. Compounding versus annualizing. You only annualize if you are dealing with a rate that's already compounded. So LIBOR is quoted as a continuously compounded rate. Since it's continuously compounded, you would not compound a continuously compounded rate. You'd use simple interest only. So a lot of systems in the world were set up using simple interest because LIBOR was continuously compounded. Now we have SOFR, which is not continuously compounded, but we have a problem where a bunch of systems are set up to use simple interest. So the New York Fed has given direction on this, saying over short periods of time, go ahead and use simple interest. But the proper technique all the time, if you don't have LIBOR, the proper technique is compounding. But if you have a continuously compounded interest rate, it is always simple interest. So I hope that helps. Okay, it is 9:41. We've been at this for 3 hours and 41 minutes. And I don't know where the market sits right now, so we may as well have a look at that before we go. And the yen is not doing well. The peso is not doing well. The Canadian's doing nothing really. And futures are flat. No information there at all. Futures are flat. But they did open higher, 41.43 down to 41.32 to flat. So we've lost 11 points just with thinking. All right, this is it for me. If you want any more information on the CFA products we have, it's markmeldrum.com. The applied series is there as well, markmeldrum.com. And if you do have any other questions, you can use support at markmeldrum.com. Somebody on the other side has already built out a big Q&A, and we've already got a whole bunch of questions, so they can, your question will look like somebody else's question. They can answer that. And in 2 weeks, we have the level 3. Next Sunday, I'm doing another live feed, but it is purely for the market, meant to time with the market outlook. So it'll be 6 o'clock next Sunday, but it won't be CFA related. It will be market related. So I won't have well, maybe I will be wearing the M hat. I don't know, but being that this is CFA related, right? Is it 6 attempts is true? How and when is it calculated? That is only for new candidates entering. Prior to 2021, I think if you started before 2021, it doesn't apply, but that's 6 attempts per level. And that'll be it. Let's see. Oh, well, that's it. Okay. This recording will be up. I think it takes like YouTube an hour or 2 or something like that to do what it does before it puts it up, but it'll be available. I'll see some of you next Sunday at 6. I'm going to hit end stream in 5, 4, 3,